6 weeks after their father's funeral, Eli Mercer stood in the rain with one hand on a chain stretched across the old footpath and listened to his brother tell half the town that he had no right to put it there. "The road bridge is closed," Connor said. Water ran off the bill of his hardware store cap. Behind him, a dozen adults waited beneath umbrellas, lunch bags, and work totes hanging from their shoulders. "People need to get through. The footbridge isn't safe. You don't know that. I was under it this morning." Connor hooked a thumb toward the ravine. "Dad kept that path open 40 years, and you gave it to me 6 weeks ago." A few faces turned toward Connor. His expression changed only slightly, but Eli knew every setting of his brother's face. This one meant Connor had stepped onto ground he hadn't realized was thin. "We gave you the ravine," Connor said. "The path is different. The path is in the ravine. It belongs to Bracken." "No, it doesn't." The chain between the trees gave a small metallic shiver in the wind. Far below, Bell Creek struck the footbridge supports with a sound like somebody knocking from inside a wall. Connor looked past Eli at the wet stone steps. "Move the chain." Eli tightened his grip on it. 6 weeks earlier, he had signed his name beneath both of his brothers and wondered how a man could feel ashamed while being robbed. The conference room at Pritchard and Lowe smelled of burnt coffee and lemon furniture polish. There was a framed photograph of the courthouse on one wall, though the actual courthouse stood across the street and looked less dignified. In the photograph, somebody had removed all the power lines and parked cars. Bracken had never looked that clean in person. Eli sat at the end of the table in the only chair that squeaked. Wade sat nearest the attorney, shoulders square inside a navy jacket that fit him too well to have come from his usual closet. Connor had brought a yellow legal pad and clicked his pen every few seconds without writing anything. He liked to have an object in his hand when he wanted people to think he was prepared. Marlene Pritchard slid 3 copies of the family settlement across the table. "As I explained," she said, "your father's will leaves the estate equally among you. This agreement is your proposed division of the actual properties. Once all 3 of you sign, each man receives sole ownership of the parcel listed beside his name, along with the associated property." "Right," Wade said. Eli looked at the map between them. The Mercer land had been outlined in red and divided with blue ink. The house and pasture formed a broad, sensible shape at the top. The downtown building was a clean rectangle labeled 1620 Main Street. The final parcel was long, crooked, and shaded by contour lines packed so tightly together they looked like fingerprints. Mercer Ravine, 11.3 acres. His name was written beside it. Connor stopped clicking his pen. "It looks worse on a map." Marlene glanced at him over her glasses. "I mean the lines," Connor said. "Topographical maps always look dramatic." "They indicate slope," Eli said. "Yes, Professor, I'm aware." Eli ignored him. "The Main Street building was appraised at $380,000, before the roof estimate," Connor said. "The house and pasture at $410. Before septic," Wade added. Nobody mentioned the ravine's appraisal until Marlene placed one finger beside the number. $42,000, she said. Eli looked at Wade. "You called it an equal split. It is equal when you include liabilities. What liabilities does the pasture have besides grass?" Wade leaned back. He was 39 and had inherited their father's habit of growing quieter when he wanted the room to bend toward him. "The house needs work. The barn roof is shot. Taxes aren't nothing. The apartments over the store bring in rent." "When they're occupied," Connor said. "They're occupied now. One tenant's late. One tenant is always late. That's not the same as empty." Connor gave Marlene a smile that asked her to appreciate how difficult Eli was being. She did not return it. Wade folded his hands. "You don't want the store. That's not the point. You hate retail. I hate you calling me to fix the furnace and then telling people you run everything yourself." Connor's mouth tightened. "I paid you. Once, I offered. You offered me a snowblower that wouldn't start. It needed a carburetor. That was the problem you called me to fix." Marlene removed her glasses and cleaned them with a cloth. The gesture was so patient, it embarrassed all 3 brothers into silence. Wade spoke first. "Nobody's trying to cheat anybody." The word cheat had not been used until he used it. Eli looked down at the settlement. He had slept 4 hours after a night shift and still had grease beneath one thumbnail from repairing a lift motor at the nursing home. His black funeral shoes pinched his heels because he had worn them every time somebody from church brought a casserole and wanted to sit in Warren Mercer's chair. The funeral had been 9 days ago. Eli still woke at 3 in the morning, believing he had heard his father's cane strike the bedroom floor. Wade tapped the blue outline around the house. Dana and I have been handling that place for years. Eli almost laughed. Dana had chosen new curtains 2 Christmases ago. Wade had replaced a porch light and mentioned it at every family dinner since. I handled that place, Eli said. We all helped Dad. Connor said it softly, which made it worse. Eli looked at him. You visited Sundays. I run a business 6 days a week. You visited Sunday when he was awake. You left before supper because he got confused after 5. Connor's pen clicked once. Wade's voice hardened. Don't make this a contest. It became a contest when you drew lines on a map. Marlene set down her glasses. Mr. Mercer, Eli, you are not obligated to sign today. Both brothers looked at him then. Wade's gaze was steady. Connor's was restless. Neither looked guilty. That was the part Eli could not fit inside himself. They were not villains in their own minds. They were men solving a complicated problem, and the problem happened to be him. Wade exhaled through his nose. If we sell everything outright, it could take a year, maybe longer. The house will sit empty. The store could lose tenants. Legal fees come out of all our shares. And if we divide it this way, Connor said, we keep Dad's things in the family. Your things? Eli said. Connor's eyes flashed. You're getting 11 acres, straight down. Land is land, then trade me. The room went still. Eli pushed the map toward Connor. Take the ravine. Give me the store. Connor looked at Wade. It lasted less than a second, that look, but it answered everything. Wade reached for the map and turned it so the labels faced him. You know the store. You know what kind of headache it is. So does Connor. That's why it makes sense for him to have it. And the house makes sense for you. Yes. What makes the ravine make sense for me? Connor shrugged. You like being outside? For one startled moment, Eli thought he might hit him. Not dramatically, no chair thrown, no blood on the lemon-polished table. Just one plain punch across the mouth, quick enough to surprise them both. Instead, he said, I spent 4 years inside Dad's house. Wade looked toward the photograph of the courthouse. Nobody asked you to. Marlene stopped cleaning her glasses. Connor stared at the yellow pad. Wade seemed to hear his own sentence only after it had crossed the table. His face softened, but pride moved faster than apology. You chose to stay, he said. I'm not saying it wasn't hard. I'm saying choices have consequences for everybody. Dana and I covered property taxes twice. Connor kept Dad on the store insurance longer than he had to. We did what we could. Eli could have listed the things he had done. The showers. The ruined sheets carried to the washer at 2 in the morning. The pills crushed into applesauce because Warren had decided swallowing was a challenge to his dignity. The afternoon Eli found him trying to repair a toaster with a butter knife and had to take it away while Warren cursed him with startling creativity. He could have told them about their father's lucid hour 3 nights before he died when Warren squeezed Eli's wrist and whispered, You're the steady one. Eli had waited for more, an apology, a thank you, instructions, anything. But Warren closed his eyes. The steady one. As if that were an inheritance. Eli signed. His name came out wrong. The first letter was too large, and the last 2 ran together. Marlene asked if he wanted a moment before signing the remaining copies. No, he said. Connor clicked his pen and signed with a flourish. Wade used their father's old fountain pen. In the hallway afterward, Connor touched Eli's shoulder. Hey. Eli stopped but did not turn. We're not throwing you away, Connor said. It was such an astonishing choice of words that Eli finally faced him. Connor's confidence faltered. I mean, this is property. It's not personal. You made sure I got the part nobody wanted. There might be timber. There's shale. People build on slopes. Go build on it. Connor shoved his legal pad under one arm. You've been angry since before Dad got sick. No. I've been tired since Dad got sick. You just like that better because tired people don't argue. Wade emerged from the conference room carrying the settlement folder. Let's not do this here. Where would you like to do it? Eli asked. Your house? Wade winced. There it was at last, small and satisfying. 1 clean inch of hurt. Eli hated himself for enjoying it. He took the stairs instead of the elevator. Outside, Bracken's April sky hung low over Main Street. Connor's hardware store stood halfway down the block. Its green awning faded almost gray. In the opposite direction, the Mercer house was hidden beyond the ridge. Both properties already seemed to have absorbed their new owners. Eli's inheritance lay somewhere behind the courthouse, below everything people had bothered to build. He drove there because he had nowhere else to go. The upper entrance to Mercer Ravine was easy to miss. 2 stone posts leaned among the sumac, and a warped wooden sign had gone nearly white with age. Warren had once painted Mercer Footpath across it in green letters. Only Mur and Path remained. Eli parked on the shoulder. His truck ticked as the engine cooled. The first stone steps descended beneath wet branches. Brown leaves had collected in their hollow centers. A length of rusted handrail disappeared into honeysuckle, and beyond it, the ground dropped sharply toward the creek. Eli had not walked the path in years. He remembered his father coming home muddy after storms, setting his tools by the back door while their mother complained about creek water on the floor. Warren never explained where he had been. He simply washed his hands, ate whatever was warm, and went back the next morning if the rain continued. Eli took 3 steps down, then 5. Below him, through bare trees, the old iron footbridge crossed Bell Creek in one narrow black line. On the far side, the path climbed toward Main Street. A crushed can rolled in the wind and caught against his shoe. 42,000, Eli murmured. His voice traveled strangely in the ravine, smaller when it came back. He picked up the can, then another. Near the bend, he found a fallen branch blocking the steps. He tried moving it with one hand, failed, took off his funeral jacket, and laid it over the rail. The branch was heavier than it looked. It came free suddenly, tearing his palm and sending him backward into the mud. For a while, Eli sat there in his white shirt and pinching shoes, laughing hard enough that it hurt. Then he carried the branch off the path. He laughed until his breath fogged his glasses. Then he wiped them on his shirt, leaving a streak of mud across one lens, and looked up at the branch as if it had pushed him on purpose. "Fine," he told it. "You win." He carried it farther anyway. By the time he climbed back to the road, his funeral shoes were ruined. The right one made a wet sucking noise with every step. He put his jacket on the passenger seat, drove to the laundromat, and parked behind the building where the tenants were allowed to leave their vehicles as long as they didn't block the delivery door. His apartment was above the dryers. On busy evenings, the floor gave off a steady vibration that traveled up the legs of his kitchen table. Warren had hated it there. "A man can't think over all that humming," he had said the first time he visited. "You watch television at full volume. That was programming. This is noise." The dryers were running now, giving Eli's 2 rooms a faint mechanical pulse. He left his shoes on newspaper beside the door and washed his bleeding palm in the kitchen sink. His phone showed 2 missed calls from Wade and 1 message. "Need you to collect personal items from Dad's room this week. Dana wants to start painting." Eli read it twice. Warren had been dead 9 days, and the walls had already offended somebody. He typed, "What color?" then erased it. "I'll come tomorrow." At work that night, he wrapped his hand in gauze from a first aid cabinet and tried to keep it out of sight. The nursing home's rehabilitation wing had a sit-to-stand lift that groaned whenever it took weight. Eli had replaced the actuator 3 months earlier, but the evening aide swore it was about to kill somebody. "It's not supposed to make that noise," she said. "It has always made that noise. Then it's been planning the murder a long time." He crouched beside the lift, removed the housing, and found a strip of disposable underpad wound around one caster. When he pulled it free, the groaning stopped. The aide stared at him. "That's it." It was being dramatic. "So am I, but nobody fixes me. Put in a work order." She laughed and pushed the lift away. Eli was returning his screwdriver to the maintenance cart when Mara Velez came out of the therapy room carrying a stack of resistance bands. She was 32, short enough to need the step stool Eli kept hiding from people who used chairs instead, and wore her dark hair clipped up with a pen. "You know you're bleeding on public property," she said. He looked at his palm. A red spot had soaked through the gauze. "I'm making the hallway look expensive. It looks infected. It happened 2 hours ago. You work fast." Mara put the resistance bands on his cart without asking, and took his hand. She had the annoying grip of someone professionally accustomed to people pretending not to hurt. "What did you do?" "Moved a branch? Did the branch have teeth?" "Emotional issues." She peeled back the gauze. Eli watched her face for a reaction and got none. You need that cleaned properly, she said. I cleaned it. With what? Soap. Hand soap? It was near my hand. That is not a category of medical product. She led him into the therapy room, sat him beside the parallel bars, and returned with antiseptic and a fresh bandage. The room smelled of rubber mats and wintergreen muscle cream. A plastic skeleton stood in one corner, wearing a Bracken Bearcat's cap someone had stolen from the lost and found. Mara dabbed the cut. You weren't here last week. My father died. Her hand paused. Eli disliked the moment when people rearranged their faces after hearing. Sympathy made him feel as if he had handed them something heavy. I'm sorry, she said. Thank you. Were you close? He lived in a house, and I was there a lot. Mara looked at him, but she did not force the answer into a neater shape. Branches? His property got divided today. I went to see my part. And it attacked you. Immediate feedback. She taped the clean bandage in place. What kind of property? A ravine, like a scenic ravine, like a hole with property taxes. Maybe it's an exclusive hole. Very private. Almost nobody can stand on it. Her mouth tilted. Congratulations, landowner. It was the first time anyone had said the word without making it sound like a consolation prize. The next morning, Eli drove to the Mercer house in clothes he did not mind dirtying. Dana's car was gone, but paint cards had already been taped to the front door. Linen white, soft ecru, morning cream. They all looked like the same surrender. Wade met him in the hall. You look terrible, he said. Good morning. Did you work last night? Eli walked past him. People keep aging after business hours. The house smelled faintly of the ham Connor had brought after the funeral. 3 sympathy arrangements crowded the dining table, their lilies browning at the edges. Warren's recliner was gone from the living room. Eli stopped. Where's Dad's chair? Curb. You put it on the curb? It was stained. I know it was stained. The donation place wouldn't take it. You could have called me. Wade rubbed a thumb along the side of his jaw. Would you have wanted it? Eli imagined the recliner in his apartment, humming above the dryers. He imagined walking in after work and seeing the permanent hollow where Warren's body had settled. He hated that the answer was no. That isn't the point, he said. I didn't think it was. Wade led him to the back bedroom. Warren's clothes had been removed from the closet and laid across the bed in tidy stacks. Dana had labeled cardboard boxes, keep, donate, and ELI. The ELI box contained 2 flannel shirts, a shaving mug, 3 paperback westerns, and a ceramic ashtray. Warren had not used since quitting cigarettes 18 years earlier. You kept the tools, Eli said. They're in the garage. For the house? For now? Eli looked at him. Dad's socket set is older than your marriage, and it isn't attached to the plumbing. Wade's mouth tightened. Take what you want. I'm not fighting over wrenches. You fought over a ravine. That was you fighting. Connor entered through the kitchen without knocking. Are we doing this again? He carried a box of account ledgers against his chest. His hardware store cap was pushed back, showing a pale strip across his forehead. Eli pointed toward the garage. I'm taking Dad's hand tools. Take all of them, Connor said. Half are rusted. Wade shot him a look. What? Connor shifted the ledgers. Dana doesn't want the garage full of junk. It isn't Dana's garage, Wade said. Connor grinned. Not until she finds the right shade of white. Wade almost smiled. The movement vanished when he caught Eli watching. In the garage, everything was where Warren had left it. His green metal toolbox sat beneath the workbench, dented at one corner and speckled with old paint. A bow saw hung from a nail. 2 shovels, a mattock, pruning shears, and a post-hole digger leaned beside the lawnmower. Eli lifted the toolbox. It was heavier than expected. Connor opened a cabinet and whistled. He kept coffee cans full of screws. Of course he did. He knew what he had, Eli said. He had 30 pounds of mismatched screws. And you own a hardware store. I sell matching ones. Wade picked up the mattock and checked its edge. Dad used to take this down the ravine. I know. He went after every big rain. Eli waited, hoping Wade would add something. Why their father had cared, what he had done there, whether he had ever talked about leaving it to one of them. Wade only handed him the mattock. You'll need a truckload just to clear the upper trail, he said. I have a truck. You have a noise with license plates. Connor laughed before he could stop himself. Eli did too. It slipped out, brief and disloyal. For a second, the three of them stood in the garage with their father's tools between them, and the last 9 days loosened their grip. Then Wade said, "I didn't mean what I said yesterday." Connor became very interested in the coffee cans. Eli set the toolbox in his truck. "Which part?" "That nobody asked you to stay." That was the whole sentence. I meant none of us understood what we were agreeing to. You took over. You didn't ask either. Should I have made a sign-up sheet? That isn't what I'm saying. It's usually what you're saying when you aren't saying what you're saying. Wade put both hands on his hips. "I'm trying to apologize." "No, you're trying to make the sentence sound better." Eli closed the tailgate. Connor followed him to the driveway. "He does that. It's how married people apologize." "From the garage," Wade said, "I can still hear you. Then it's working." Eli drove away with the green toolbox sliding behind him every time his transmission hesitated. Over the next 4 mornings, he went to the ravine after his shift. He cut honeysuckle from the railing, cleared 3 fallen limbs, and hauled out 2 contractor bags of bottles and food wrappers. He found one of Warren's old repairs, where a loose stone step had been wedged level with a piece of slate. The work was simple enough to quiet him. Every task led to another, without asking what he intended to do with his life. On the 5th morning, a woman in a purple raincoat appeared below him, carrying a paper cup and a canvas work bag. "You planning to leave any path for walking?" she called. Eli stepped aside. "I thought it was abandoned, only by people with good knees." She climbed steadily, breathing hard but refusing to slow while he watched. Eli recognized her as Ruth Bell, who worked at the Bellwether Hotel, despite sharing its name by coincidence and explaining that coincidence to everyone. She stopped beside him and inspected the cleared steps. "You're Warren's youngest." "Eli, I know. You fixed the hotel boiler during that cold snap. I told Mr. Bellwether to replace it. He heard, 'Wait until it explodes.' That's his preferred schedule." She took a drink from her cup. "Your father used to keep this nicer. Thank you. I'm not criticizing. Dead men have more free time." Eli laughed despite himself. Ruth nodded toward the bridge below. "Watch the 3rd board from the west side. It moves. You use this every day? When weather allows? Saves 25 minutes getting downtown. I thought the town maintained it." "The town thinks your father maintained it. That isn't the same thing. It was to the town." She continued uphill, leaving Eli with that sentence. He walked down to the footbridge. Rust showed beneath the peeling black paint, and several planks had softened at the edges. He tested the 3rd board from the west side. It shifted under his boot with a damp wooden complaint. Eli crouched and looked beneath it. Someone had reinforced the board from below with a narrow strip of steel. The bolts were rusted nearly smooth. On the support beam, Warren had marked a date in green paint. August 19th. Almost 5 years ago, just before his first stroke. Eli ran a thumb over the faded numbers, then opened the toolbox. Rain began tapping the leaves before he finished tightening the first bolt. By noon, Bell Creek had turned the color of coffee. That evening, the storm settled over Bracken and refused to move. The rain struck the apartment windows hard enough to wake Eli before his alarm. For a few seconds, he thought he was back in Warren's house, listening for the cane against the floor. Then, a dryer below him thumped with an unbalanced load, and the room arranged itself around him. Narrow bed, work boots, water stain above the closet, green numbers on the alarm clock. 5:17. He went to the window. Water sheeted down the glass. The alley behind the laundromat had become a shallow brown stream, and his truck sat in the middle of it with one tire slowly losing air. His phone buzzed on the table. The nursing home's automated message said, "Non-essential morning staff should delay arrival." A second message from Mara said, "If maintenance is non-essential, I'd love to meet the essential genius running things." He typed, "The skeleton in the Bearcat's cap." She replied before he set the phone down. Knew it. Eli put on his raincoat and drove toward the ravine. Bell Creek had left its banks. Water churned between the trees, carrying branches, plastic bottles, and one red patio chair that struck a boulder, spun twice, and continued downstream. Eli stopped at the upper steps. He could barely see the footbridge through the rain, but the black line of it was still there. He started down. Mud moved beneath his boots. Halfway to the creek, he found water cutting across the path, where leaves had blocked an old stone channel. He cleared it with the mattock, pulling out black handfuls of rot until the water turned and rushed harmlessly down the ditch. Another channel had vanished beneath honeysuckle. By the time he opened that one, rain had soaked through his coat at the shoulders. The path had been built to shed water. He could see that now. Stone lips guided runoff away from the steps. Shallow trenches curved along the slope, each one feeding the creek without letting the hillside come with it. Warren had not simply cut brush and replaced boards. He had kept a system alive. Eli climbed back to his truck before the creek rose any higher. At the road, his phone showed 6 missed calls. 3 were from work, 2 were from Connor, 1 was from Wade. Connor called again as Eli got inside. "Where are you?" "Ravine." "Of course you are. Have you heard about Bell Bridge?" Eli looked through his wet windshield toward the county road, crossing downstream. "What about it?" "They closed it." "For flooding?" "For a hole." "What kind of hole?" "The bridge kind, Eli." Under the east approach. Asphalt dropped 6 inches, and apparently engineers get nervous about that. Smart men? You think this is funny? No. The detour comes in from Route 9. Eli pictured it. To reach Main Street from the hillside neighborhoods west of Bell Creek, drivers would have to backtrack through 2 townships and approach Bracken from the south. "How long?" he asked. "They don't know." Wade heard at least a month. Wade hears professionally. People are already turning around. "I've got 2 employees who can't get here. Tell them not to drive over the hole." Connor went quiet for half a beat. "The footpath is clear, right?" Eli looked down the steps. Water poured through the newly opened stone channels. "No." "What do you mean, no?" "I mean there's a flood happening. The bridge is above the creek. Barely." "Dad left it open during storms." "No, he didn't." "You don't know what he did." Eli gripped the steering wheel. "Neither do you." Connor lowered his voice. "I have a delivery coming this afternoon. If the driver can't reach the front, I need Greg and Lorna at the store to unload from Maine. They're both over on the west side. Then they can come after the water drops. They're adults. Let them decide. Not on my bridge." Connor gave a short, humorless laugh. "Your bridge. That took 4 days." The line went dead. Eli stayed until he saw the creek level stop climbing. When he finally reported to the nursing home, he was 3 hours late and carrying wet socks in his coat pockets. Mara found him in the basement, checking the emergency generator. "Tell me, those aren't what they look like," she said. "They're gloves. With heels? They're specialized." She sat on an overturned bucket. "I had to take Route 9, 53 minutes to travel 4 miles. You could have stayed home and let Leon lead chair exercises. Last time he used a video from 1987. Strong year for chairs." Mara watched him wipe rainwater from the generator housing. "I heard Bell Bridge might be closed until summer. Connor says a month." "Then definitely summer." She glanced at his soaked jeans. "Were you at the footpath?" "Yes. Is it passable?" "Not today, but normally." He took longer than necessary to fit the panel back into place. "People say it is. I'm asking the landowner. People say he's moody." "I've met him. Then you understand the concern." Mara picked up a loose nut from the floor and rolled it between her fingers. "I live off Laurel Road. That path would turn my 53 minutes into 12. After the water goes down, I'll check it." "So, that's a yes?" "That's an inspection. You know, ordinary people answer questions without making them sound like work orders. Ordinary people don't touch nuts they find on maintenance room floors." She looked at her hand and set it down quickly. The rain eased overnight. By the following afternoon, Bell Creek had withdrawn into its channel, leaving branches tangled against the footbridge supports and a pale mud line 3 feet above the normal water level. Eli crossed once before opening the path. The steel frame held. 2 boards shifted, including the one Ruth had warned him about, but none cracked under his weight. He tightened what he could, painted orange marks beside the soft edges, and dragged the storm debris away from the lower steps. He had not announced that the path was open. Nobody asked. They simply came. First came Greg from Connor's store carrying an empty lunch cooler, then 2 hotel housekeepers in identical maroon shirts. Ruth appeared in her purple raincoat, nodded at Eli's repairs, and said, "Your father would have used green paint. Orange is easier to see." He was committed to aesthetics. By 5, people were passing in both directions. Some thanked Eli. Most greeted him the way they always had, as if he happened to be standing beside a public sidewalk. A man Eli recognized from the feed store stopped halfway across and bounced experimentally on both heels. "Don't do that," Eli said. The man stopped. "Just testing her." "That's what I'm doing. She's held this long, so have your knees. I wouldn't jump on those either." The man laughed and walked on. Mara arrived near sunset in clean walking shoes and a red jacket. 12 minutes, she said. "You timed it?" "I'm a therapist. We time everything. I thought you just handed people colorful rubber bands. That's our decoy business." She leaned over the railing to look at the creek. "Don't lean." Mara straightened. "You become unpleasant outdoors. The railing is loose. It wasn't until you mentioned it. That's how structural problems work." She looked at the orange paint marks. "Are you repairing all this yourself? For now? Does the town help? They might send somebody to stand near it with a clipboard. That's not nothing. Clipboards create confidence." Eli knelt beside the loose railing post. "My father maintained it." "Why?" "I'm trying to figure out if he knew." "Knew what?" "That he was doing the town's job." Mara studied him. "Maybe he thought it was his." "It is his." "Was." "And now?" Eli tightened the bolt. "Apparently it's mine when it needs work and everybody's when they need it." Connor came down the Main Street side before Mara could answer. He wore a green store apron and carried 2 boxes of work gloves. "There he is," Connor called. "Bracken's bridge troll." Mara looked at Eli. "You undersold the family resemblance." Connor reached them and handed her a box. Connor Mercer, generous brother, Mara Velez, person who didn't ask for gloves. They're for him. He buys cheap ones and blames the branches. Eli accepted the boxes. They were the reinforced kind he could never justify buying. "Put them on my tab?" he asked. "You don't have a tab. Then thank you." Connor glanced at Mara, surprised. "Did you hear that?" Grief has changed him. Mara's smile faded just enough to make Connor notice what he had said. He cleared his throat. "Store's been busy. People are coming over on foot instead of driving around. Sold out of rain gear this morning." "Congratulations on the hole in the road," Eli said. "It's not all profit. My delivery got pushed to Friday. You'll survive. Because this is open." Connor slapped the railing. It moved under his hand. Eli stared at him. Connor took his hand away. "That was already like that. That's what I've been telling people." "Well, fix it." Mara went very still. Eli stood. "I'm going to pretend you asked differently." Connor's ears colored. "I mean, you're already working on it. Wade said Dad's tools went to you." "The tools aren't magic. I brought gloves. Then the bridge is saved." Connor looked toward the steady stream of walkers. "What do you want me to say? This matters. Main Street's already hurting. If people can't get across, half the businesses lose half their customers. Then maybe half the businesses can send help. I can ask around. Don't ask around. Ask them." Connor's expression shifted. Eli recognized the small calculation behind it. His brother wanted the path open, but he also wanted the help to look like his idea. "Saturday morning," Connor said. "I'll get people together after I figure out what needs doing. Saturday works for everybody. Saturday works for you." Connor glanced at Mara, as if hoping for arbitration. She lifted both hands. "I'm just here for the decoy business." Connor returned uphill. Mara waited until he was out of hearing. He did bring good gloves. He'll put up a sign saying he donated them. Would that be inaccurate? He'll make the sign bigger than the bridge. On Saturday, Connor arrived 40 minutes late with coffee, 6 volunteers, and a handwritten sign that said, "Mercer Hardware Footpath Cleanup." Eli folded the sign and put it under his truck seat. They cleared storm debris, reset loose stones, and cut back brush from the lower approach. Connor worked harder than Eli expected, though he paused whenever someone passed so they could see him working. Wade came without announcing himself and spent 2 hours digging silt from a drainage channel. He and Eli spoke only about where to throw the mud. The volunteers left before noon. Wade stayed long enough to help carry a waterlogged limb up the bank. "Dad used to complain nobody helped him down here," Wade said. "He asked you?" "No." "Then how did you know?" "He complained that nobody helped him with everything." Eli laughed once. "That sounds right." Wade wiped his hands on his jeans. "You could sell the parcel back into the estate. There isn't an estate now. To us, then. For 42,000? I'm saying if you don't want the burden." Eli looked at the reopened ditch, the cleared steps, the bridge carrying 3 adults toward town. "You were comfortable giving me the burden." Wade did not answer. The following weeks settled into a routine Eli had not chosen. He worked nights, slept in pieces, and spent his mornings at the ravine. The road detour remained. Foot traffic doubled. Connor began directing customers to the path as though it were a side entrance to his store. Eli replaced 6 boards with lumber bought on his credit card. He reset 2 railing posts and added reflective strips at the steepest turn. Each repair exposed another weakness. Bolts had thinned. Mortar had washed from the stone abutment. A lower drainage trench had collapsed beneath the roots of a maple. His landlord slid a note under his door about the overdue portion of his rent. The truck's transmission began slipping whenever he climbed Laurel Road. Eli put the note in a kitchen drawer and learned to ease off the accelerator before second gear. The path looked better. That was the dangerous part. Fresh boards and cleared brush made people trust the entire structure. After several dry days, Eli climbed beneath the footbridge to inspect the support Warren had marked. He wore Connor's gloves and tied a rope around his waist, though there was nobody above to hold it. The creek moved quietly below him. At first, he thought the dark line in the steel was peeling paint. He scraped it with a wire brush. The line remained. It ran from the edge of a bolt hole toward the center of the support, thin as a hair near the top and wide enough at the bottom to catch his fingernail. Eli stayed beneath the bridge for a long moment, listening to footsteps cross overhead. Then he climbed out, went to his truck, and took the chain from behind the seat. He looped it between the 2 stone posts at the upper entrance, fed it through a length of red plastic pipe so no one would walk into it in the dark, and fastened a plywood sign to the middle. Closed. Structural damage. At the Main Street end, he used rope because the chain would not reach between the trees. He left his phone number beneath the warning and took photographs of the crack, the bolt hole, and the rust scale gathered on the rocks below. The first call came 7 minutes later. "Can I go across if I'm under 200 pounds?" a man asked. "No." "What if I stay to one side?" "No." "Which side is cracked?" That information wouldn't make it safer. The man sighed. "You don't have to get smart." The next caller wanted to know whether the closure applied to bicycles. A third asked whether Eli had checked with the town. By the time Connor came down the upper steps with 8 stranded workers behind him, Eli had explained the crack 11 times and been called unreasonable in 6 different ways. Connor stopped at the chain. "Move it." Eli was wet, hungry, and too tired to soften anything. "No. The road bridge is closed. People need to get through. The support is cracked." Then put up a warning. Eli touched the sign between them. "Excellent idea." One of the waiting men laughed, then tried to disguise it as a cough. Connor's jaw tightened. Dad kept this open. Dad didn't have a crack in the support. "How do you know?" "Because he marked the last repair, and I've spent 3 weeks looking at it." Connor hooked a finger through the chain. "You don't get to shut down a town path because you found a scratch. It's my bridge. It's everybody's bridge. You gave it to me." That silenced the people behind Connor. "We gave you the ravine," Connor said. "The path is different. The path is in the ravine. It belongs to Bracken." "No, it doesn't." Connor glanced back at the waiting workers. He had expected an argument between brothers, not a lesson delivered in front of customers. "Prove it," he said. "The property map is in the agreement you signed. Property lines don't erase 70 years of public use. I'm not erasing anything. I'm keeping people off a cracked bridge." Connor lifted the chain over 1 stone post. Eli caught his arm. "Put it back." "Take your hand off me." "Put it back." The workers shifted behind him. Nobody wanted to become part of the scene, but nobody left. Ruth Bell's voice came from the steps above. "If you 2 are going to wrestle, give me enough room to get around." She descended in her purple raincoat, carrying her work bag. Connor pulled his arm free. "Eli closed the path," he said. "I can read." He found a crack. "Then I support literacy in cracks." Eli moved in front of the opening. "You can't cross, Ruth." "The bridge carried me this morning. I found the damage after that." "What kind of damage?" "A fracture in one of the steel supports." Ruth peered down the trail as though she might see it from there. "How long to fix?" "I don't know. I start in 20 minutes. You'll need to call the hotel. The hotel knows I work there." Connor spread his hands. "This is what I'm talking about. These are adults, Eli. You warn them and let them decide. The bridge doesn't know they're adults." Ruth touched Eli's sleeve. "I appreciate you looking after it." "I do." But I've crossed in worse. No, you've crossed when it looked worse. The distinction sounded weak even to him. Connor saw it. We walk single file. Nobody stops. That's less weight than it has carried all month. Or the crack has grown all month. You don't know that, neither do you. Ruth stepped around Eli while the brothers faced each other. He reached for her work bag, missed, and heard the others move behind Connor. Stop. Connor went first, as if volunteering to prove the bridge safe. He walked with his arms slightly away from his sides, more cautious than he wanted anyone to notice. Ruth followed. The others waited at the top of the steps. Eli ducked under the chain and went after her. The bridge made no dramatic sound. No metallic shriek warned them. Connor reached the far side and turned with triumph already forming on his face. Ruth's right foot went through a board. The softened plank split along the orange line Eli had painted. Her leg dropped to the thigh, and her body pitched sideways over the railing. Eli caught the back of her raincoat. The sudden weight pulled him down. His left shoulder struck the rail, and white pain flashed across his chest. Ruth cried out as her trapped leg twisted beneath her. Connor ran back. "Don't put more weight here," Eli snapped. "I'm helping. Get off the span." Her leg stuck. I know where her leg is. Ruth gripped the railing with both hands. Her face had gone gray. "Eli!" she said through her teeth. "You were right. Please enjoy that later." He braced one boot against the steel edge and reached beneath the broken board. Splintered wood had caught her trouser leg but had not pierced the skin. He lifted the loose section while Ruth pulled. His shoulder nearly gave way. Connor crouched on the abutment. "Let me take her. From there. Don't come closer." Ruth freed her leg. Connor caught both her wrists and drew her onto the stone approach. Eli followed, cradling his left arm. The waiting workers vanished from the upper entrance one by one. Some went to call rides. Others simply did not want Eli remembering they had been there. Wade arrived 20 minutes later in his pickup. Connor had called him instead of an ambulance after Ruth insisted nothing was broken. Wade took one look at the shattered plank. "What happened?" "Board gave way," Connor said. "After I closed it," Eli added. Connor rounded on him. "I know when it happened. Do you?" Ruth sat on a stone with her trouser leg rolled up. Blood tracked from a scrape along her shin, and her ankle had begun to swell. "Save it," she said. Connor was an ass, I was stubborn, and Eli was unpleasantly correct. In that order. Wade crouched to examine her ankle. "You need an x-ray. I need to get to work." "You're not going to work." Another Mercer man giving orders. Must be the slope. Wade surprised Eli by laughing. He helped Ruth into his truck, moving slowly and explaining each step before he touched her. Wade had always been good in emergencies. He became gentler when there was something concrete to do, and worse when all that remained was talking. Connor stood beside the broken board. "You should have replaced that one." Eli stared at him. "You marked it," Connor said. "You knew it was soft. I reinforced it. It broke. Because you opened the path after I closed it. You closed it for the support, not the board." Eli took one step toward him. Connor stepped back. The movement was small. It stopped Eli more effectively than Wade could have. Connor looked frightened, not of a punch exactly, but of whatever their brotherhood had become in the last minute. Eli lowered his hand. "Go. People need this path. Go, Connor. I'm trying to solve the actual problem. You are the actual problem." Connor's face closed. He climbed toward Main Street without looking back. Eli replaced the rope with a wooden barrier bolted into the stone posts. He worked one-handed until dusk, driving screws badly and dropping the drill twice. At the upper entrance, he installed a second barrier and wired the chain behind it. He added another sign. "Danger, no crossing." Someone had already written "power trip" across the first sign in black marker. Eli carried it to his truck and sat behind the wheel. His left arm shook when he tried to turn the key. Mara found him the next night in the nursing home supply room, attempting to lift a box of air filters with his right hand. "What did you do?" "Changed hands." She took the box from him. "Your left shoulder is 6 inches lower. That seems unlikely." "Take off your shirt. Usually you buy me dinner before criticizing my symmetry." "Usually?" He looked at her. "That was a structural question," she said. "Shirt." The shoulder had swollen purple along the front. Mara examined it carefully, asking him to raise his arm, rotate it, and press against her hand. He failed the first two and lied about the third. "You need imaging," she said. Ruth got imaging. "How does that help your shoulder? There's only so much imaging Bracken can endure. Eli, she has a sprain, Wade texted. And you? I have ice. You have a possible rotator cuff injury. I caught her. Mara stopped. Caught who? He told her. Not the whole argument, only the board breaking and Ruth falling. Mara listened with her arms folded. You closed the bridge first? Yes. And they crossed anyway? Yes. Connor, he thought a warning was enough. What did you think? Eli glanced at the sling she had taken from a cabinet. I thought I could fix it before anybody needed to care who owned it. Mara fitted the sling around his neck. That isn't an answer, it's the one I have. His phone rang before she could argue. Connor's name appeared on the screen. Eli let it stop. A second call followed from Wade, then a number he did not recognize. Popular, Mara said. Word travels when you injure a hotel employee. The unknown caller left a message. Eli played it on speaker while Mara adjusted the sling. This is Denise Carter with Bracken Public Works. I need to speak with you regarding the Mercer footbridge closure. We have no record of a town-issued closure, and we'll be inspecting the crossing tomorrow morning. Mara raised an eyebrow. A clipboard? Confidence is coming. Denise arrived at 8 with a clipboard, a camera, and 2 public works employees carrying yellow barricades. Connor was already waiting beside the upper entrance. Wade stood near his truck with Ruth, whose ankle was wrapped and whose expression suggested she had been brought against her will. Denise inspected the broken plank, then followed Eli to the creek bank to photograph the fractured support. She did not argue with him about the closure. She only asked when he had found the damage, what repairs had been made, and whether he had receipts for the materials. Why? Connor asked. The town's going to reimburse him? Denise looked up from her notes. We first need to determine responsibility. It's a town path, Connor said. That's what we're checking. It has always been a town path. Use and ownership aren't the same thing. Connor pointed toward Eli. He didn't even own it until last month. He owns it now, Wade said. Everyone looked at him. Wade held the settlement map inside a clear plastic folder. The footbridge is inside the parcel boundary, both entrances too. Connor stared at his older brother. Why did you bring that? Because she asked who owned it. You could have said the family. The family doesn't. Wade handed the map to Denise. She compared it with the parcel display on her tablet, then made a call. Eli could hear only her half of the conversation. Mercer Ravine, private parcel, search the easement index. Yes, both approaches. Ruth leaned closer to him. You look disappointed. My shoulder hurts. That isn't what I said. Denise ended the call. There's no recorded public easement, she said. Until we confirm otherwise, the town cannot open, repair, or authorize use of this footpath without the owner's permission. Connor looked at Eli. For the first time since the papers were signed, nobody in the ravine mistook which brother she meant. Connor found his voice first. So, he can give permission. Denise tucked Wade's map beneath her clipboard. He can authorize access. That does not make the bridge safe, but it lets your people fix it. It lets us enter the property to inspect it. Repairs require funding, materials, approval, and a determination of who maintains the crossing afterward. Your public works. Yes, those words seem pretty clear. Denise regarded him with the patience of someone who dealt regularly with men, explaining her department to her. Would you like to discuss the municipal water intake next? Ruth made a sound that might have been a cough. Connor looked toward Main Street. I'm saying this is an emergency. The road closure is an emergency. This is a damaged private footbridge that could help with the emergency if it were safe. Eli liked the order she put the words in. It was the first sensible sentence anyone had spoken about the path. Denise turned to him. I need written permission for a complete inspection. That isn't permission to open it. You have it. I'll send a simple access form this afternoon. Connor spread his hands. Then we're done. No, Eli said. We've started. His brother looked at the sling. You can't even work on it. Neither can you. I can hire somebody. Who? Connor opened his mouth, then closed it. One of the public works employees secured a yellow barricade in front of Eli's wooden one. The town's barricade was brighter, heavier, and printed with official lettering. Everyone treated the closure more seriously after that, though it said the same thing Eli's sign had said. Ruth watched the employee place sandbags across the base. Confidence, she murmured. Eli smiled despite his shoulder. Denise completed the inspection 2 days later. She brought one bridge technician from the county, not an entourage, and spent more time beneath the span than above it. Eli waited on the creek bank while Connor paced the upper path and took business calls loudly enough for everyone to hear that business was suffering. The preliminary list was longer than Eli expected. The crack support needed reinforcement or replacement. 12 deck boards had enough rot to require removal. 2 railing connections had failed. Water had eaten mortar from the west abutment. And the lower drainage channel needed to be rebuilt before another storm sent the slope onto the bridge. "How much?" Eli asked. The technician rubbed rust from his fingers. "Depends on how much labor comes from the town, how much is contracted, and whether that support can be reinforced in place. Ballpark. I don't give ballparks while standing under things." Connor stopped pacing. 10,000? The technician looked at Denise. She said, "We'll prepare an estimate. People need an answer now." "They need a bridge that stays under them," Eli said. Connor ignored him. "What if we replace the boards and limit how many people cross?" "The deck isn't the primary concern," Denise said. "What if we put a steel plate on the support? Designed by whom? My point is, there are options. Those are questions with the word 'what' in front of them. That isn't the same as options." Ruth had returned to work with a cane she disliked and an ankle brace she disliked more. She was standing beside Eli, and the cane shook once with contained laughter. Connor heard it. "I'm glad this is entertaining. It stopped being entertaining when I went through the bridge," Ruth said. "Now it's educational." He walked uphill. The estimate arrived on a Friday afternoon. $19,800 if the support could be reinforced. More if removal exposed additional corrosion. Bracken could contribute labor and some equipment, but there was no existing budget line for a privately owned path. Denise would request emergency funding at the next town meeting. Until then, the barricades stayed. The number sat on Eli's phone while he sat in his truck outside the nursing home, trying to calculate money he did not possess. His credit card had less than $700 available. The overdue rent and current rent together would consume his next paycheck. His shoulder injury had removed him from the on-call rotation, which meant no overnight repair bonuses. The truck slipped twice on the drive to work and made a grinding sound near the top of Laurel Road. He rested his forehead against the steering wheel. A horn sounded behind him. Mara parked beside the truck, rolled down her window and called, "Are you praying or dead? Checking the steering column. With your forehead? It's sensitive equipment." She got out and waited until he did the same. The sling was no longer mandatory, but he wore it when the shoulder ached. It ached constantly. "You went back too soon," she said. "I took 4 days. For an injury you're refusing to have diagnosed." The urgent care physician said, "Strain." The urgent care physician also recommended imaging if your range of motion didn't improve. It improved. "Lift your arm. I'm holding keys." "Other arm. That one is supervising." Mara took the keys from his right hand. "Lift it." He managed halfway to shoulder height before pain stopped him. "Impressive," she said. "If you ever need to reach a very low shelf. I work on machines, not clouds." Machines are notorious for staying below waist level. Inside, his supervisor assigned him to inventory filters and light bulbs. Eli counted the same carton of fluorescent tubes 3 times because his mind kept returning to $19,800. During his break, he found a paper sack beside his lunchbox. Inside was a turkey sandwich, an apple, and an ice pack wrapped in a dish towel. The note on top said, "Clouds unavailable. Try 20 minutes." He looked through the break room window. Mara was crossing the courtyard between buildings, arguing with the wind about an umbrella. He put the ice pack on his shoulder. The town meeting filled the back room of the Bracken Municipal Building with merchants, hillside residents, and people who seemed to attend any event involving folding chairs. Eli stood near the door. Connor sat in front, wearing a sport coat over his store shirt. Wade arrived late and took the empty chair beside Eli without asking whether it was saved. Denise presented the inspection findings in 6 minutes. The discussion lasted nearly an hour. A restaurant owner wanted to know why emergency funds could repair a road approach, but not a footbridge. A retired accountant wanted to know whether Bracken would be liable if someone fell after the town repaired it. 2 West Side residents argued that the path had functioned as public infrastructure longer than most of the current council members had been alive. Then someone asked why Eli did not simply donate it. The room turned. Eli recognized the speaker as a woman who bought laundry tokens downstairs from his apartment. She gave him a polite, almost apologetic smile, as though the reason had honestly escaped her. Before he could answer, Ruth stood with her cane. He just inherited it, she said. His father maintained it without pay, and Eli has already spent his own money repairing it. I fell because I ignored his closure. If you want somebody to donate something, start with the people asking. A few people clapped, more looked at their laps. Connor raised his hand, though nobody had asked for hands. No one's blaming Eli. Eli looked at him. Connor continued. But we need a practical solution. Main Street businesses are losing customers every day. The town has labor. The owner has the legal ability to grant access. Maybe we stop turning this into something complicated, Denise said. The bridge is what's complicated. The council agreed to consider $12,000 in emergency funding if the remaining costs could be covered privately and if Eli signed a public access and maintenance agreement. Nothing was approved that night. Everyone left with the irritated posture of people who had expected a meeting to repair steel. Outside, Wade stood beside Eli under a street lamp. You did all right, he said. I didn't say anything. That's usually when you do best. Eli glanced at him. Was that a compliment? Don't get greedy. Connor came through the doors, already talking. I can get materials near cost. Maybe less if I lean on suppliers. You lean on suppliers? Wade asked. They value the relationship. They value getting paid. Connor ignored him. We raised the remaining 8. Merchants, residents, donation jar at the store. And then? Eli asked. Then the town repairs it. Who inspects after storms? Public Works. Denise didn't say that. She will. Who replaces boards next year? Connor shoved his hands into his coat pockets. We solved this problem first. That's what Dad did. Then he solved it again every year. Wade looked toward the dark line of Main Street. Maybe the town buys the path. Connor nodded. A strip, not the whole ravine. Both entrances and the bridge. How much? Eli asked. Neither answered quickly enough. Connor finally said, 5,000? Eli laughed. It's a footpath, Connor said. It's the footpath keeping your store from losing half its customers. It isn't keeping anything. It's closed. Then why do you want it? Wade stepped between the words before they became something else. It's an opening number. From whom? Eli asked. You two? We could buy it and transfer it to the town, Wade said. Get the repair moving. Eli looked from Wade's careful expression to Connor's impatient one. You valued the entire ravine at $42,000 when you wanted me to take it, he said. Now the only part you need is worth $5. That appraisal included acreage, Wade said. Acreage straight down, remember? Connor's voice sharpened. What do you want, Eli? A payday because the road broke? There it was, the version of him Connor needed. Bitter, opportunistic, waiting beside a cracked bridge with his hand out. Eli's shoulder throbbed beneath the sling. I want you to stop deciding what my things are worth, he said. He walked to his truck. The engine started on the 3rd try. Ruth was waiting outside the laundromat when he got home, her cane hooked over one arm and 2 coffees in a cardboard tray. I owe you an apology, she said. You already told the whole town you ignored me. That was testimony. This is an apology. He unlocked the back door and held it while she climbed the narrow stairs. She moved carefully but refused his help. In the apartment, the dryers hummed beneath them and Ruth looked around without pretending not to notice how little furniture he owned. She handed him a coffee and sat at the kitchen table. Your father closed that path whenever the creek came up, she said. People complained about him too, called him stubborn, called him worse. Connor says he left it open. Connor crossed on sunny Sundays. Eli looked down at the coffee lid. Ruth turned her cup between both hands. Warren once told me a shortcut is only a gift if somebody does the ugly work of keeping it safe. That sounds almost wise. He was furious about a clogged ditch. Anger improved him. Eli smiled. He knew people needed that path, Ruth said. But he also knew needing a thing doesn't give you the right to wear out the person maintaining it. Below them, a dryer buzzer sounded. Eli sat across from her, $19,800 still glowing in his mind. Ruth nudged the second coffee closer, though it was already his. You caught me after I walked past your warning, she said. So, this time, before I decide what help you need, I'm going to ask. He looked at her. What can I do? She said. I need somebody who knows steel, Eli said, not somebody who watched a video and owns a welding helmet. Ruth nodded. And I need to know what Dad actually did down there. Not the version people tell now that he's dead and can't correct them. Those are different jobs. I know. Good. I'm terrible with steel. She took a sip of coffee and considered the first job. Dennis Cole welded for the rail yard until his back convinced him to retire. He repaired the hotel's fire escape after Mr. Bellwether hired a man who believed bolts were decorative. Does Dennis still work? He still tells everyone else how. That might be enough. I'll ask him to look. I won't ask him to donate anything. Eli glanced at her. You said ask first, she reminded him. I didn't say what I could pay. I noticed. Ruth did not ask about the overdue notice half hidden beneath a grocery flyer on the counter. She finished her coffee, wrote Dennis's number on the back of a laundromat receipt, and left with her cane striking every third stair. Dennis arrived at the Ravine the following morning in a brown work van with Cole Mobile Welding faintly visible beneath gray primer. He was broad through the chest, silver-haired, and moved as if several joints had negotiated separate agreements about speed. You Warren's boy? He asked. Eli. Which one's the hardware store? Connor. Which one's got the house? Wade. Dennis looked down the steps. Then you're the one they gave gravity. Ruth, standing beside the van, tried not to smile. Eli led him beneath the bridge. Dennis examined the crack with a flashlight, a wire brush, and a small mirror on a telescoping handle. He made no impressed noises. Eli trusted him more for that. Can it be reinforced in place? Eli asked. Everything can be reinforced in place if you don't care what happens afterward. I care. That complicates it. Dennis measured the steel, tapped around the bolt hole, and climbed out of the creek bank. He drew a rough shape on the back of the town's estimate. Plate both sides, not one. Take the load off before welding. Replace these bolts while you're there. If the interior steel is clean enough, this will outlast those deck boards and probably us. Probably? I don't warranty people. He calculated material and labor in silence. The number he wrote was $2,300, plus the cost of lifting equipment if Public Works could not provide it. Eli looked at him. That's low, that's my rate. It isn't. Dennis folded the paper. Your father spent 3 nights helping me pull equipment out of a flooded shop. Wouldn't take money. I'm not repeating his mistake. That price pays my helper, fuel, insurance, and enough for my wife not to call me an idiot. What does it pay you? The privilege of being unsupervised. I'll pay your regular rate, then I'll leave. Ruth lifted her cane and pointed it toward Eli. He can do that all day. Dennis handed over the estimate. Town repairs the abutment and supplies the lift. I reinforce the support. Volunteers can handle boards if someone competent directs them. Both men looked at Ruth. She said, I'm injured, not incompetent. You walked past the closure, Eli said, temporarily incompetent. Dennis walked the bridge approaches with him, pointing out places where water had undermined stonework. Near the lower channel, he stopped beside an old iron grate almost hidden beneath roots. Warren used to dig this out every fall. You helped him? Once. He criticized my shovel. What was wrong with it? Nothing. He was tired and I was nearby. Dennis pushed at the grate with his boot. He wanted the town to take the path over years ago. They wanted him to sign something making it public while he kept the maintenance. Warren said that was like donating a cow and remaining responsible for the manure. Ruth laughed so hard she had to hold the railing. Eli looked toward the bridge. Why didn't he tell us? Dennis shrugged. Maybe he did. Warren could tell a man something for 20 minutes without using the sentence. That sounded true enough to hurt. The town approved the $12,000. Connor raised another $3,800 from Main Street businesses in 4 days, installing a glass donation jar beside his register and a large paper thermometer in the window. Mercer Footpath. Repair Fund was printed across the top. Underneath, in smaller letters, it said, Organized by Mercer Hardware. Eli learned about the fundraiser when a hotel cook thanked him for letting Connor handle things. He went to the store after work. A brass bell rang above the door. Connor stood behind the counter pricing boxes of deck screws. Business was thin. 2 customers wandered the plumbing aisle, speaking in low voices. You could have told me, Eli said. Connor did not look up. You said merchants should help. I said ask them. I did. You didn't ask me. Connor pressed a price sticker onto a box. Were you planning to say no? I was planning to know whose name is on a fund for my property. Your name? Our last name? So it's only yours when somebody needs permission? Connor finally met his eyes. People are giving because they need the path. They don't care which brother gets thanked. You put your store on the sign because the jar is in my store. Then write the town checks from the town. I'm keeping a record of every donation. I didn't accuse you of stealing. You walked in here like you wanted to. One of the customers turned into another aisle without choosing a fitting. Eli lowered his voice. Who controls the money? Bracken Business Association. You're treasurer for 6 more months. And what happens if I don't sign the town's agreement? Connor put down the pricing gun. Why wouldn't you? I haven't seen it. They're funding the repair. That's not an answer. Everything is a trap to you now. No, just things you arrange before telling me. Connor's face changed. The anger remained, but something tired moved beneath it. My sales are down 31%. Greg is burning gas he can't afford on the detour, and Lorna has been borrowing her sister's car. The restaurant across the street cut 2 dinner shifts. I'm not doing this because I want my name on a jar. You put it there. I'm doing what I know how to do. The sentence landed more softly than either of them expected. Eli picked up a box of reinforced work gloves from the display beside the register. Same kind Connor had brought to the ravine. How much? He asked. Take them. I have a pair. Then why are you holding those? I'm reading the label. You stare at labels aggressively. Eli put the gloves back. Connor picked up the pricing gun. Denise has the agreement. Sign it and we can order materials. I'll read it. Try not to inspect the staples for structural weakness. No promises. Mara met Eli at the footpath after her shift. He had asked her to look at the approaches, though he regretted it when she arrived carrying a measuring wheel, a clipboard, and 3 colors of tape. You mocked the clipboard, he said. I mocked government clipboards. This is rehabilitation. Completely different wood. She measured step heights, marked loose stones, and made notes about the handrail. The bridge remained barricaded, so they worked each side separately, walking the road detour between them in Eli's truck. The transmission slipped twice. Mara gripped the door handle but said nothing until they reached Main Street. How attached are you to this vehicle? It has doors, I noticed. One almost opened during the turn. That's ventilation. She wrote a red number beside a step near the hotel approach. This rise is almost 11 inches. It was built before knees. Ruth catches her toe here. So do people carrying things. You've watched them? I used the path. Used. Mara looked at him. You didn't break it? It became mine, then it closed. It was breaking before it became yours. That distinction isn't helping Connor's sales. No, but it should help you sleep. Eli nudged a loose stone with his boot. Sleep is mostly helping me sleep. Mara marked the step with red tape. You're treating this like the only choices are fixing it alone or failing everybody. I'm accepting help. You argued with Dennis about his price. Ruth tells you too much. Ruth tells everyone too much. It's why she's useful. Mara crouched beside the railing. What happens after it reopens? I fix the next thing. And after that, the next thing is usually followed by another. Exactly. He knew what she meant. He disliked her for meaning it. Denise brought the public access agreement to the ravine instead of asking Eli to come to the municipal building. Wade and Connor arrived separately. Ruth came without invitation. Dennis stayed because he wanted to know whether he should reserve his helper. Denise handed Eli 6 pages clipped to a blue folder. This is the town's standard public use agreement for private land. Eli read, standing beside the barricade. The town would contribute up to $12,000 toward the immediate repair. Eli would grant permanent public access to the footpath. The owner would remain responsible for future maintenance, inspections, closures, and hazards. The town could terminate its participation, but the public access would remain. He read those lines again. Connor shifted beside him. Well? Eli handed the folder to Wade. You read it. Wade frowned. Why? Because you wanted me to sign the last thing quickly. Wade accepted the pages. Connor made an exasperated sound. This isn't the inheritance. No. This time everybody knows the land matters. Denise did not defend the agreement. It's a standard form. You can request revisions. How long? Connor asked. That depends on the revisions. Wade reached the maintenance section. His eyes narrowed. You'd keep the liability? He asked Eli. And all future repairs. But public access is permanent, Ruth said. Denise nodded. Under this version. Connor looked between them. The town is paying $12,000 now. For a repair that keeps your customers moving, Wade said. Connor stared at him. Whose side are you on? Wade kept reading. I wouldn't sign this. The words surprised Eli so much that for a moment he forgot his shoulder hurt. Connor laughed without humor. Of course. Now you two discover principles. Eli looked at Denise. I'll grant access for inspection and repair. I won't give away permanent use while keeping every cost and every risk. What do you want changed? She asked. A renewable agreement, town insurance while it's open, shared inspections, materials funded when repairs are for public use, my right to close it for weather or damage without getting called a criminal. Denise wrote each point on her clipboard. Connor stepped closer. Every day you negotiate, people lose money. And every year I maintain it under this agreement, I lose money. You own the land. You keep saying that like ownership is supposed to hurt. The ravine went quiet except for the creek. Denise closed the folder. I'll take the revisions back. Connor watched her leave, then looked at the barricaded bridge, the donation thermometer visible in his store window beyond it, and finally at Eli. You got what you wanted, he said. Now everybody has to ask you. Eli looked down at Warren's stone channels carrying clean water along the slope. No, he said. Everybody wants the path. I'm asking who carries the work. Connor climbed the Main Street steps without saying goodbye. Wade remained beside the barricade, holding the unsigned agreement. He turned to the maintenance section again, as if the words might improve when his brother was gone. You were right to make me read it, he said. Eli glanced at him. Careful. I'm not apologizing for everything. That sounded dangerously close. Wade closed the folder. The town shouldn't get permanent use while leaving you permanent responsibility. Tell Connor. He's scared. So am I. Connor gets loud. I know how Connor works. Wade looked toward the hardware store. No, you know how he treats you. That isn't always the same thing. Before Eli could ask what that meant, Wade handed back the folder and followed the path uphill. Denise arranged a temporary repair license that required only 3 signatures and did not decide the path's future. It allowed town equipment and approved workers onto Eli's land for 60 days. The town carried insurance during construction. Eli retained the right to stop unsafe work, and nobody could reopen the crossing without a completed inspection. Connor signed as treasurer of the business association, then complained that his signature did not give him any actual authority. Denise said, that was not an oversight. The $12,000 became available. The donation fund climbed past $5,000 after Ruth persuaded the Bellwether Hotel to match a weekend's contributions. Dennis reserved his helper. Public Works agreed to provide a portable support frame and rebuild the west abutment. The repair could begin. Eli's rent could not wait for it. Mrs. Dalton, who owned the laundromat and both apartments above it, caught him beside the coin machine on Monday morning. She was 70, wore silver sneakers, and kept pencils in her hair, despite never remembering where they were. I dislike notes, she said. So do I. I slid you one. I got it. You did not respond. I was going to. People say that when they mean they were hoping the note would die. Eli looked through the glass door at his truck. I can give you half Friday and the rest next paycheck. Mrs. Dalton folded her arms. You're already at the rest. I know. You working? Light duty. The shoulder? He nodded. She examined him for the length of one dryer cycle. Half Friday. The remainder in 2 weeks. After that, I need the apartment or the money. That's fair. No, fair would be on time. This is me liking you more than I like bookkeeping. She reached into her hair, found no pencil, and took one from behind the coin counter. Also, your bathroom faucet leaks. I can fix it. Not with that arm. I'm sending Leonard. I've fixed everything else up there. And I have undercharged you for the privilege. It was said without cruelty. That almost made it worse. At the ravine, Ruth had placed a folding table beside the upper entrance and covered it with sign-up sheets, work gloves, and a coffee dispenser borrowed from the hotel. She wore no ankle brace now, though the cane remained hooked over the table. I asked for names, Eli said. These are names. There are 23. You didn't specify a maximum. He picked up the first sheet. People had listed experience beside their names. Carpentry, landscaping, concrete, carrying things and accepting direction. One person had written, I own a wheelbarrow. What did you tell them? That the owner needed help repairing the approaches while the steelwork happened. You called me the owner? You are. Not the man blocking the path. I saved that for people who don't bring gloves. Eli looked toward the volunteers gathering near the truck. Half of them are going to injure themselves. Then give them jobs that don't involve creativity. He divided the work into small pieces. 4 people cleared the lower drainage trench. 3 carried replacement boards to the Main Street approach, but did not install them. 2 hotel employees scraped loose paint from the railings. Mara arrived with her measuring wheel and recruited a retired mason to reset the 11-inch step she had marked. Eli moved among them, correcting grips, relocating tools, and stopping a restaurant owner from swinging a mattock within 3 feet of anyone's head. "You're doing that wrong," he told him. The restaurant owner lowered the tool. "I've been digging holes 30 years. This is a drainage channel. It's a long hole. It needs slope. It's already on a mountain." Mara appeared behind Eli. "He means the water has to travel without taking the path." The man nodded at her. That explanation had nouns. Eli handed him a line level. "Use this." Mara waited until they were out of hearing. "You can't correct everybody personally. I just did. There are 22 more. 1 left. He said you made carrying branches stressful. He carried them across the path sideways. The branch survived. Ruth could have been killed by a board." Mara's expression softened, which irritated him more than disagreement would have. "You are not holding the bridge up with your nervous system," she said. "I know. Do you?" Dennis called for Eli from the creek. The support frame had arrived on a public works trailer, and his helper was setting jacks beneath the span. Eli went down too fast, slipped on the damp bank, and caught himself with his injured arm. Pain flared through his shoulder. Mara caught the back of his shirt. "Excellent demonstration." "I'm fine. You made a sound." "It was a word." "What word?" "Gravity." Dennis looked up from the jacks. "If you 2 are finished courting, I need the owner." Eli straightened. Mara let go of his shirt. "We're not courting," they said together. Dennis nodded. "That always saves time." Connor arrived carrying invoices and a bundle of new work aprons. He had persuaded 3 suppliers to discount steel, fasteners, and treated lumber. The savings closed nearly all the gap between the town money and the repair estimate. He handed the invoices to Ruth instead of Eli. "Business association records," he said. Ruth studied the totals. "These are good prices. I know how to run a hardware store. Then the rumors are unfair." Connor stared at her. She smiled and added the invoices to her folder. He worked with the crew carrying boards. He did not stop when passers-by appeared. He did not mention the store's contribution unless someone asked. Eli noticed and tried not to. Wade came after lunch with a shovel and Dana's old wheelbarrow. The wheel squeaked with every turn. "You own a pasture and brought the worst wheelbarrow in Pennsylvania," Eli said. "It was the one by the garage. That doesn't make it yours. It came with the house. Then I priced it too high." Wade smiled. "There he is." They worked together at the lower channel. The town crew had removed the rusted grate, revealing a stone-lined culvert packed with roots and gravel. Wade loosened the debris while Eli pulled it free one-handed. "You shouldn't be doing this," Wade said. "You're becoming repetitive. Your shoulder. You're becoming Connor." Wade drove the shovel into the muck. "Take that back!" They cleared another foot in silence. Water began seeping through the stones, first in a narrow line, and then with enough force to carry silt toward the creek. Wade leaned on the shovel. "Dad told me you were the steady one." Eli stopped pulling roots. "When?" he asked. "Last fall. I came by after you'd gone to work." He was angry because you wouldn't let him drive. He couldn't feel his right foot. "I know. No, you didn't. He told you I took his keys. He also told me you'd kept him alive." The water gathered strength in the channel. Eli tossed a root onto the bank. "He told me the same thing before he died." Wade's grip tightened around the shovel handle. "Of course he did." "What does that mean?" "It means he wanted both of us to hear it." "You sound angry." "I was." "At me? At him? At you? I don't know." Wade pushed the shovel deeper than necessary. "I paid taxes. I fixed the porch. Connor kept the store running, while Dad stopped remembering orders. Then I come over and hear that you're steady. What does that make us?" "Absent." Wade looked up. Eli wished the word back. Not because it was false, but because it was exactly true enough to end the conversation. Wade pulled the shovel from the mud. "You never asked for help. I asked Connor to cover one night when Dad had pneumonia. He had inventory, and I had a job. You could have called me. You were in Columbus. I would have come home. He would have been discharged by the time you did. You decided that for me." Eli opened his mouth, then closed it. Wade nodded once, not in triumph. You took over. Dad leaned on you because you were there, and then you made being there the only thing that counted. I changed his sheets. I know, I fed him, I know. I found him on the kitchen floor twice. Wade's face shifted. I didn't know that. You didn't ask. You didn't tell me. The culvert released suddenly. Water burst through, soaking both men to the knees and sending a clump of leaves against Wade's boot. Wade looked down at his jeans. Eli laughed first. Wade tried not to, failed, and sat on the bank with muddy water running around his shoes. For half a minute they laughed like the ravine had played a joke on both of them. Then Wade wiped his face. I should have come more, he said. Eli sat beside him, careful of his shoulder. I should have called. Neither sentence repaired anything. They remained there anyway. By late afternoon, the upper approaches were clear and the drainage channels ran clean. The altered step had a lower rise and a wider landing. Dennis had positioned steel plates on both sides of the cracked support, their fresh gray surfaces bright against the old frame. Before welding, he called everyone away from the bridge. Connor stood beside Eli near the creek bank. I heard what you asked Denise to put in the new agreement. From Denise? From everybody. The right to close a damaged bridge sounds controversial. The paid maintenance contract. Eli looked at him. You think I should do it free. I think asking the town to hire you while you own the only crossing looks bad. Maintaining it for free while your store makes money looks good. Connor rubbed both hands over his face. You always do this? Do what? Turn every question into proof nobody values you. The welding arc flashed blue beneath the bridge. Everyone's shadows jumped across the trees. Eli watched Dennis work through the dark glass of his shield. Maybe I'm tired of accepting whatever proves the opposite. Connor had no answer ready. When the first plate was fixed in place, Dennis struck it twice with a hammer and listened. That's one side, he said. Nobody celebrates until there are two. The volunteers returned to work. Connor picked up one end of a railing section without being asked. Wade took the other. Eli stood between the brothers, holding nothing, while the sound of tools filled the ravine. Dennis finished the second plate near dusk and refused to let anyone touch it until the steel had cooled. Connor touched it. Dennis slapped his hand away with a welding glove. You sell tools for a living. How are you this curious about burns? I wanted to see if it held. With your fingers? Connor tucked his hand under his opposite arm. It's not hot, because I stopped you. The volunteers had stripped the remaining rotten boards from the deck, leaving dark gaps over the creek. New lumber waited in ordered stacks on the Main Street side. Eli walked the frame with Dennis after everyone else had gone. The reinforced support did not move under them. Dennis checked each weld with a light and mirror, then marked the plates with the date. You use green paint? Eli asked. Only color I found in the toolbox. Eli recognized the small can from Warren's garage. Wade must have brought it. Dennis capped the paint. Don't get sentimental. It was mostly dry. Does it pass? The reinforcement does. The bridge doesn't pass anything until the boards are down, the railing is secured, and that abutment stops pretending to be stone. Denise's crew starts tomorrow. Then tomorrow, you can worry about something else. I have a list. Of course you do. Public Works removed the loose west side stonework and rebuilt the face around a reinforced concrete core. The work took 2 days longer than expected because the first equipment trailer sank axle deep beside the creek and had to be pulled out by the second. Dennis watched from a folding chair, offering advice nobody requested and coffee everybody accepted. Eli spent his mornings directing volunteers and his nights counting light bulbs at the nursing home. His shoulder improved enough that Mara allowed him to lift his arm past his chest, though not without commentary. Slowly, she said in the therapy room. I am moving slowly. You're moving angrily. Speed has emotions now. Yours does. She stood behind him while he raised a wooden dowel overhead. Her hand hovered near his elbow without touching. Stop before pain. That was before work. I'll put you in the sling again. You enjoyed the sling. It made you easier to identify from a distance. When he finished, she handed him an ice pack and a paper container from the diner. I didn't order this. Ruth did. Ruth has become a supply chain. She says you forget meals when people give you clipboards. Eli opened the container. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans cooked far beyond resistance. Did she buy one for you? No. He found a second fork wrapped in the napkin. Mara looked at it. She's subtle. She walks with a cane she no longer needs so she can point at people. They ate at a treatment table beneath an anatomical poster of the shoulder joint. Mara stole the crisp edge of his meatloaf without asking. The town sent the new agreement, Eli said. And 5-year term. Renews if both sides agree. They carry public use insurance. Annual inspection with public works. I can close the path for weather or damage. That sounds like what you asked for. They'll fund up to $2,000 a year in materials. But no maintenance pay. Mara leaned against the parallel bars. Did they say no? They said separate procurement process. That's government for maybe eventually, after 3 forms disappear. I know. You're going to reject it. I didn't say that. You moved the green beans into a defensive line. Eli looked down. The beans had, in fact, become a barrier between the meatloaf and potatoes. I offered a 90-day access agreement, he said. Open it after final inspection. Keep negotiating the long-term arrangement. That's reasonable. Connor called it blackmail with a calendar. Connor has a gift. He says the town is already paying for the repairs. The town is paying because the town needs the path. He thinks I'm making being underpaid into a personality. Mara took the fork from his hand and ate one of the defensive beans. Are you? He stared at her. You asked for honesty, she said. I asked if you wanted dinner. No, Ruth asked that for both of us. He tried to take the fork back. Mara held it away. Your father needed you, she said. Your brothers didn't see the work. Now the town needs you, and suddenly everybody sees it. That has to feel good. It doesn't. Not even a little? Eli looked at the green numbers on the microwave across the room. A little. And that scares you because if the path doesn't need you later, maybe they stop seeing you again. That's a lot to get from green beans. I'm highly trained. He held out his hand for the fork. Mara gave it back. Get paid for the work. Just don't confuse needing the work with needing the emergency. He looked at her. She wiped gravy from the corner of his mouth with her thumb, then seemed surprised she had done it. Neither moved for a second. The therapy room door opened. Leon, carrying a stack of foam pads, stopped. Should I come back? Yes, Mara said. No, Eli said. Leon backed out. Excellent clarity. The west abutment needed 7 days to cure before the bridge could take public traffic. Denise scheduled the final inspection for the following Monday. Eli posted the date at both entrances beneath the closure signs. By Thursday, someone had circled Monday and written "Y" in red marker. Eli wrote concrete beneath it. Friday morning, the same person had added, "It looks dry." Eli wrote, "So does toast. You can't build a bridge on it." Ruth found him replacing the marker cap. You're arguing with a sign, she said. The sign started it. She read the exchange. Toast was strong. The road bridge repair had also fallen behind. State crews discovered more erosion beneath the approach, and the closure stretched into another month. Main Street merchants began counting the lost weeks aloud. The diner shortened its hours. The clothing shop postponed an order. Connor's delivery area filled with unsold lawn equipment that should have been displayed outside. His annual spring sale began Saturday. He had ordered the inventory before Bell Bridge closed. Advertisements had already run in 2 county papers. Manufacturer rebates expired Sunday. Connor had tied green balloons to the hardware store railing, but hardly anyone came down Main Street to see them. Eli found him in the ravine Friday afternoon, standing at the repaired west abutment. Monday, Eli said. Connor pressed his thumb against the concrete. It's hard. So is your head. We don't walk on that either. Dennis says the steel is good. Dennis doesn't inspect concrete. Denise's crew finished a week ago. 6 days. By Sunday, it's 8. Inspection is Monday. Connor walked onto the first new board. Eli's voice sharpened. Get off. Connor stopped. You replaced every board. Off. The rails are fixed. The support is reinforced. The abutment is cured. You don't know that. Neither do you. That's why there's an inspection. Connor stepped back onto the stone approach, but his face remained turned toward the bridge. I need this weekend. Eli had expected anger. The quietness unsettled him. How bad? He asked. Connor laughed once. Now you ask. I'm asking. Connor sat on the low stone wall beside the abutment. His store apron was dusty at the knees. I use the apartments as security for the inventory line, he said. Spring sale pays down winter stock. It does every year. You said the building came without debt. The mortgage is paid. The business isn't. That wasn't in the settlement. You didn't ask. The words came back with Wade's voice. You didn't tell me. Connor rubbed at a spot of concrete on his shoe. If I move half the mowers, I'm fine. If I don't, I carry them into summer and pay interest. Greg needs more hours. Lorna already asked whether I'm cutting her schedule. Eli leaned against the railing. You made the store sound like the clean piece. You made caregiving sound like sainthood. I never said that. You never had to. Dad did it for you. Eli stiffened. Connor looked up. He told everybody you sacrificed. He didn't tell them you were scared to go back to Pittsburgh after the first year. The ravine seemed to narrow around them. You don't know why I stayed. I know you stopped talking about the apprenticeship before Dad got really bad. Eli wanted to deny it. The denial did not come. The first year, Warren could still dress himself, cook, and spend whole afternoons at the hardware store correcting Connor's displays. Eli could have returned. The apprenticeship coordinator had called twice. Eli had listened to both messages and deleted them. Connor stood. We all tell the version where we had no choice. That doesn't make the bridge safe Friday? No. It just makes you less holy standing in front of it. He went back to the store. Eli remained beside the bridge until the light faded. Connor's words worked at him because they were partly true. Eli had stayed from love, duty, exhaustion, and fear. He had let those reasons harden into one noble shape because that shape was easier to defend. It did not mean Connor could open the path. On Saturday, the sale drew fewer customers than Connor needed. Eli knew because he drove the detour after his shift and parked across from the store. Green balloons dragged along the railing in the rain. Greg stood beside a row of mowers under a canopy, hands in his pockets. Connor saw Eli through the window and turned away. By Sunday afternoon, clouds had thickened over Bracken. The weather service warned of heavy overnight rain, not enough to flood the road, according to the forecast, but enough to raise Bell Creek and test the new drainage. Eli went to the ravine to check the channels. The upper barrier was intact. At the Main Street entrance, the town barricade had been moved aside. The rope lay on the ground with one end cleanly cut. Voices came from the bridge. Eli ran down the steps and saw Connor halfway across with 3 Main Street merchants behind him, carrying boxes toward the hillside neighborhood. The new boards shone dark beneath their boots. Connor turned at the sound of Eli's approach. I'm moving merchandise, he said, not customers. Eli looked at the cut rope, the heavy sky, and Bell Creek beginning to darken below them. Get off my bridge. One of the merchants, Adele Kim from the clothing shop, lowered the carton in her arms. I told him we should wait, she said. You told me the boxes were heavy, Connor replied. They are also heavy. Vincent from the diner had a hand truck loaded with cooking oil. The third man, Curtis Nolan, carried 2 cases of canned paint against his chest. All 3 looked from Connor to Eli, calculating which brother was more likely to get them across before the rain. Connor took another step. The bridge is finished. The inspection is tomorrow. Denise's people built half of it, and Denise's people left the barricade up. Because government employees don't work Sundays, they worked on this bridge. Eli stepped onto the span. Take the boxes back to Main Street. Connor remained where he was. We're already halfway. That doesn't make the other half safer. It's 4 adults and merchandise. It's a damaged crossing with no final load check. Dennis said the support would hold. He did not bless every object you carry over it for the rest of time. A drop struck the new board between them, then another. Adele set down her carton. I'm going back. She turned carefully and headed toward Main Street. Curtis followed, still holding the paint. Vincent tried to rotate the hand truck in the narrow space, caught one wheel against the railing, and muttered something about Mercer men that included both brothers equally. Connor grabbed the handle to help him. Leave the oil, Eli said. It cost $300. So did the rope you cut, apparently. It was 12 feet of rope. It was a closure. Thunder rolled beyond the ridge. Eli felt the bridge tremble under his boots. Everyone stopped. The vibration came again, rising through the steel frame rather than the deck. Eli leaned over the railing. Bell Creek had climbed while they argued. Brown water pressed around the center support, carrying twigs and foam. A long branch struck the newly plated steel, turned, and slipped through. Off, he said. Connor looked down. That was a branch. Off now. The tone moved them. Adele reached Main Street first. Curtis followed. Vincent abandoned the hand truck and walked backward, one hand on the railing. Connor stayed beside the cooking oil. "Leave it," Eli said. "We can pull it." A heavy crack sounded upstream. It was not thunder. Eli saw the top of a sycamore limb appear around the bend, pale wood turning in the current. One end caught against the bank. The other swung toward the bridge. "Move!" Connor jumped back as the limb struck the center support. The bridge kicked sideways hard enough to throw Eli into the railing. Pain tore through his shoulder, hot and immediate. Connor fell to one knee. Vincent's hand truck tipped, and plastic jugs of oil rolled across the boards. The sycamore limb remained wedged diagonally beneath them. Smaller branches collected against it within seconds. Water rose behind the growing mat of debris and pushed against the reinforced support. Connor got to his feet. Did it crack? I don't know. Eli grabbed one jug with his right hand and kicked another toward Main Street. Get everything off. Together they rolled and carried the oil to the abutment. Vincent dragged the hand truck clear. Adele and Curtis moved the boxes farther up the steps. Rain began in earnest. Eli crouched at the edge of the span. The steel plates remained aligned. The fresh welds showed no separation, but the jam had redirected water toward the west abutment. Muddy current struck the rebuilt stone face and curled up the bank. "If that keeps backing up, it'll go around the concrete," he said. Connor leaned over. "Can we pull the branch out?" "Not by hand. I have a come-along at the store. Cable, 30 feet. Get it. And 2 recovery straps." Connor ran toward Main Street. Eli called Wade. His brother answered on the 4th ring. "What?" "Bring Dad's chainsaw, the long rope, and the pruning pole." "Where?" "Ravine." "What happened?" Connor opened the bridge. A pause. "I'm coming." Eli called Denise next. She told him Public Works had a crew clearing storm drains on the south side and would redirect them, but they were at least 20 minutes away. 20 minutes was enough time for the creek to remake the bank. Adele had come back down the steps in a plastic poncho. "What do you need?" "Keep everyone off both entrances. If Wade arrives, send him down." "What about you?" "I'm staying on the bank." "You're standing on the bridge." Eli looked down and stepped onto the west abutment. "Better," she said. Connor returned with a boxed cable puller, 2 yellow straps, and a coil of synthetic line. He had removed his store apron, but still wore his name tag. "Where do you want it?" Eli pointed to a maple uphill from the Main Street approach. "Anchor there. Run the line through the lower rail and around the thick end of the limb." Connor looked at the creek. "Who goes down?" "Nobody." "How do we wrap the limb?" "With the pruning pole when Wade gets here. And if that doesn't work, we wait for Public Works." The jam shuddered. A section of someone's wooden fence joined it, slamming flat against the sycamore. Connor stared at the water. "We don't have 20 minutes. No." For once, he did not turn the answer into an argument. Wade came down the upper steps, carrying the chainsaw in one hand and the pruning pole under his arm. The long rope crossed his chest. He took in the trapped limb, the abandoned merchandise, and the cut rope on the ground. "You opened it," he said to Connor. Connor was threading the recovery strap around the maple. "Help first." Wade looked at Eli. "Anchor the come-along," Eli said. "We'll loop the limb from upstream and pull the thick end toward Main. If it turns, the current should carry it under the span." Wade set down the chainsaw. "Tell me where." No correction, no alternative. He simply followed Eli's pointing hand. They extended the pruning pole to its full length and taped the synthetic line to the hook. Eli lay flat on the bank, guiding the hook toward the limb while Wade held his belt. His shoulders screamed every time the pole shifted left. Connor knelt beside them. "Let me. You need to run the puller. I can hold the pole." "Run the puller," Connor went. On the 4th try, the hook carried the line beneath the sycamore. Wade caught the loop downstream with the same pole and dragged it close enough to grab. They connected the line to the recovery strap and the strap to the steel cable. "Slow tension," Eli called. Connor worked the handle. The cable straightened. The sycamore limb moved an inch and stopped. Water piled against it, bringing leaves, garbage, and a second length of fencing. "More," Eli said. Connor pulled again. The ratchet clicked. His feet slipped in the mud, but he kept the tension. The branch rotated slightly, then jammed harder between a boulder and the bridge support. Wade looked toward the chainsaw. "We cut the thin end? In that water?" "From the bank. It'll kick when the tension releases." "I know." Eli studied the angle. Warren's chainsaw had an 18-inch bar, enough to cut the exposed end if Wade could reach it from solid ground. Not enough to forgive a mistake. "Cut from above," Eli said. "Connor, back off 2 clicks. When Wade is halfway through, take tension again. Nobody stands inside the cable line." Connor nodded. Wade started the saw. It caught on the 3rd pull and settled into the rough, familiar growl Eli had heard from the garage for years. Wade crouched on the bank and extended the bar toward the wood. "Not yet," Eli said. Wade waited. Eli moved Connor farther uphill, out of the direct line. He made Vincent and Curtis step behind the stone post. Adele remained at the upper steps, refusing entry to 2 people who had arrived with umbrellas and opinions. Now. The saw bit into the wet sycamore. Chips flew into the creek. Wade cut slowly, keeping the bar clear of the water. "Take tension," Eli called. Connor worked the handle. The cable hummed. The limb split. Its thin end snapped downstream, freeing the thick section from the boulder. The sudden movement jerked the recovery strap sideways. Connor stumbled, but stayed clear. Wade killed the saw and scrambled up the bank. For one breath, the sycamore hung against the support. Then it turned exactly as Eli had hoped. Water seized it, pulled it beneath the bridge, and carried it around the bend. The fence section followed. Smaller debris spun away in a brown rush. The backed-up water dropped almost immediately. Connor stood with both hands on the come-along handle, breathing hard. Wade stared after the branch. Eli climbed beneath the bridge as far as the bank allowed. The reinforcement plates were scarred but straight. Water still struck the abutment, though now it followed the channel. Dennis and the volunteers had reopened instead of cutting around the stonework. The system worked, not perfectly, not safely forever. But the ditch held, the repaired steps stayed set. The abutment remained in place, and the bridge had taken the blow without losing its shape. Public Works arrived with flashing amber lights after the worst had passed. Denise came down in a rain jacket, saw the moved barricade, the cut rope, and the merchandise stacked beside the approach. Her eyes settled on Connor. "Tell me," she said, "that the wind did not carry cooking oil onto a closed footbridge." Connor looked at Eli. Eli was soaked, shaking, and holding his left arm against his body. He could have answered for him. He could have explained the sale, the pressure, the boxes, the certainty Connor wore whenever consequences still belonged to other people. Connor released the handle. "I cut the rope," he said. "I took them across." Denise's face did not change. "Was anyone injured?" Connor looked at Eli's arm. "Not by the bridge," Eli said. "That wasn't my question. My shoulder was already hurt, and now, still hurt." Mara would have called that dishonest in 4 separate ways. Denise ordered everyone clear while her crew inspected for movement. Connor helped Vincent wheel the cooking oil back to the store. He carried 2 jugs at a time, rain running down his face. No one spoke to him. Wade stood beside Eli beneath the trees. "You called me," he said. "I needed the saw. You could have called Dennis. He lives farther." Wade nodded as though accepting the excuse for what it was. Across the creek, Connor set down the last jug and remained with both hands on his knees. He looked small from that distance, framed by the bridge he had treated as a shortcut through everything. The crew found no immediate shift in the reinforcement or abutment, but Denise postponed the opening inspection until the structure could be checked in daylight. She replaced the barricade and added a second chain. Connor came back after the others left. Mud covered his store shirt. His name tag hung crooked. "I thought it would hold," he said. "It did." "That isn't what you mean." "No." Connor looked toward the new green date on the support. "You could have left the boxes. I almost left you." His brother absorbed that without defense. "But you didn't," he said. Eli's shoulder throbbed. "No," he said. "I didn't." Connor took off his name tag and put it in his pocket. He did not thank Eli. He picked up the cut rope, coiled both pieces, and carried them away. By the time Eli reached the laundromat, Mara was waiting beside the back door with her arms folded. Rainwater ran from his clothes onto the pavement. "Ruth called you," he said. Ruth called the nursing home, Dennis, Mrs. Dalton, and possibly the governor. "The governor can't do much for shoulders, neither can you. Get in my car. I have a truck. You have a wet chair attached to a transmission problem. I'm not going to urgent care again." Mara opened the passenger door. "Then we can sit here while I describe every tendon you may have torn." He got in. The urgent care physician found no fracture and no sign of a complete tear. He called it an aggravated strain, prescribed anti-inflammatory medication, and ordered Eli to avoid lifting for 2 weeks. Mara stood behind the physician and nodded at each restriction with vindictive enthusiasm. On the drive home, Eli rested his head against the window. "You don't have to look pleased," he said. "I'm pleased you didn't rip anything. You smiled at 2 weeks. I enjoy measurable goals. You enjoy being right, that too." She parked behind the laundromat and followed him upstairs, carrying the paper sack from the pharmacy. Mrs. Dalton had left a towel outside his door to protect the floor from him. Inside, Mara set the medicine on the kitchen counter. The apartment trembled gently above the evening dryers. "I can take care of myself," Eli said. "I know. You don't sound convinced. I watched you crawl toward a flooded bridge with an injured shoulder." "I didn't crawl. The verb is not the issue." He removed his wet jacket with difficulty. Mara helped pull the sleeve from his left arm, then hung the jacket over the shower rod in the bathroom. When she returned, he was trying to open the medication bottle one-handed. She took it from him. "Child-proof," he said. "The bottle recognizes judgment." She opened it, handed him 2 tablets, and filled a glass at the sink. Eli swallowed them. "Connor said I was afraid to leave Bracken." Mara leaned against the counter. "Were you?" "Yes." The answer surprised him with how little it resisted. "Dad still needed help," he said. "Not as much at first. I could have gone back to Pittsburgh. The coordinator called. I told myself I'd wait until Dad adjusted to the medication, then until he was safe to drive, then until Connor hired someone reliable at the store. There was always a reason. Reasons can be true and still be useful hiding places. You have sayings prepared for everything? Only when someone hands me a complete set of symptoms." He looked at the table where Ruth had sat, at the 2 mismatched chairs and the unpaid bills beneath the grocery flyer. "I was good at being needed," he said. "I knew what happened next." "And Pittsburgh? I might have failed." Mara stepped closer. "You might have. That's encouraging. You also might have been excellent. The uncertainty was the part you avoided." He studied her face. "Why are you still here?" "Because you're injured." "That isn't what I meant." "I know." The dryers beneath them stopped one by one. The sudden quiet made the apartment feel suspended. Mara touched 2 fingers to the edge of his sling. "I'm still deciding whether you're charming or just medically non-compliant. What's the timeline?" "Separate procurement process." He laughed. The movement pulled at his shoulder, and his face tightened. Mara kissed him before he could make another joke. It was brief, warm, and careful of every sore part, except the ones neither of them could locate. When she stepped back, Eli found himself still holding the glass of water between them. "That was not in the treatment plan," he said. "I'm highly trained." She took the glass from his hand before he dropped it. The bridge inspection began in clear weather. Dennis checked the welds first, then stood above the creek while Public Works measured the abutment and tested the deck under staged weight. Denise examined the channels after the storm, following the mud lines to see where water had traveled. "The lower culvert carried most of it," she told Eli. "Without that, we'd probably be rebuilding the approach. Warren designed it. Warren maintained it. This stonework is older than he was." Eli looked along the slope. He had spent weeks searching for proof that his father understood the whole system. Instead, he was beginning to understand that Warren had inherited the work too. Someone before him had placed the stones, someone else had set the first bridge supports, and Warren had stepped into a responsibility because it was there. The load test passed. Dennis struck the reinforced support with his hammer, listened, and said, "Sounds expensive." Denise removed the last yellow barricade but left Eli's chain in place. "The bridge can open under the temporary agreement as soon as you authorize it." Connor stood near the Main Street entrance. His green apron was clean, and no balloons remained outside the store. Wade waited on the upper side with Ruth, Vincent, Adele, Mara, and several volunteers who had come during their lunch breaks. Nobody had organized a ceremony. Ruth had brought a pair of scissors anyway. "They're from the hotel front desk," she said. "They cut paper if you threaten them." "There's no ribbon," Eli said. She held up the replacement rope Connor had delivered that morning. "There could be. We're not cutting another rope." Connor looked at the ground. Eli unlocked the chain. It dragged across the stone with a sound everyone heard. He coiled it instead of dropping it and set it beside the old white sign where only MER and PATH remained. For a moment, no one moved. Then Ruth stepped onto the bridge. "You're waiting for me to fall again," she called. "I'm waiting for you to follow instructions once. Don't become unrealistic." She crossed slowly, testing the new boards with her cane. At the center, she stopped and looked down at Bell Creek. Eli opened his mouth. "I know," she said. "No stopping. You can stop." Ruth turned toward him, surprised. "It's safe," he said. Her expression softened. She continued to Main Street, where Connor moved aside to let her pass. The others followed. Vincent pushed an empty hand truck. Adele carried a garment bag. Greg and Lorna came from the store in their work shirts. A nursing home aide Eli recognized crossed toward the west side with grocery sacks. Ordinary traffic returned so quickly that, within 10 minutes, the first crossing felt less like an event than something Bracken had simply resumed. Mara stood beside Eli at the upper entrance. "You did it," she said. "We did it. You hate collective pronouns. Temporary condition. You should see someone." He looked toward Connor. "I almost didn't." Mara slipped her hand into his good one. "But you did." The opening helped Main Street, though not with the miraculous speed Connor had wanted. People crossed again. The diner restored its dinner hours. The hotel workers stopped organizing complicated rides. Connor sold 4 lawnmowers the first week and complained that 2 customers wanted free delivery. Eli returned to full shifts slowly. Mrs. Dalton received half the rent on Friday as promised. The remainder still waited in the next paycheck, along with the truck repair, medical bill, and every expense that had not agreed to pause while the town discovered his importance. Denise asked him to meet at the municipal building. The revised 5-year agreement contained the terms they had discussed. The town would ensure public use, fund routine materials up to an annual limit, provide equipment for major storm work, and participate in yearly inspections. Eli retained closure authority for hazards and severe weather. The town could not extend or alter the path without his approval. The maintenance contract remained separate. "We can't name an individual in the access agreement," Denise explained. "But Public Works can contract a local steward for inspections, vegetation control, minor repairs, and storm response." The council approved a 1-year pilot. How much? She gave him the number. It was modest, less than he had earned from on-call work before his shoulder injury, more than he had expected anyone to offer for the labor Warren had performed without recognition. Paid quarterly, it would cover his rent shortfall and leave enough to begin repairing the truck. "Would I report to you?" he asked. "You'd submit inspection logs to me. What if we disagree about a closure? The bridge stays closed until we agree it's safe." Eli read the contract again. Denise watched him. "You look unhappy. I'm trying to find where I lose. You have an unusual negotiating face." Connor says I stare at labels aggressively. He's right. Eli signed the maintenance contract, but took the access agreement home to read once more. He knew the difference now between delay and care. Connor came to the apartment the evening. He stood in the hallway carrying the 2 pieces of rope he had cut. They had been joined with a careful splice, the fibers woven back through themselves. "This won't hold the same load," Eli said. "It's rope for a sign. It was rope for a barrier. I bought you a chain. I already have a chain." Connor looked past him into the apartment. "Are you going to invite me in? I'm deciding. The hallway smells like dryer sheets. That's the luxury package." Eli stepped aside. Connor sat at the kitchen table. He seemed too large for the room. He set the repaired rope between them and looked at the bills under the flyer without appearing to read them. "The business association has $1,900 left after the repair invoices," he said. "We can put it into a maintenance reserve if you agree. It belongs to the people who donated. They donated for the path, then put it in an account that requires town approval and my signature." Connor nodded. "That's what Denise suggested." "You already talked to her?" "I'm trying this new thing where I ask." Eli sat across from him. Connor rubbed the splice with his thumb. "The sale was bad." "I know. I may have to cut Greg's hours for a while." "I'm sorry." Connor's mouth twisted. "That almost sounds worse than being blamed. What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Then don't make me guess." Connor leaned back. "I thought if I got the bridge open and nothing happened, you'd have to admit I was right. The merchants would see it. The town would see it. And if something happened, I didn't let myself get that far. You never do." "I know." It was the first time Connor had agreed without turning the words around. He looked toward the vibrating floor. "I was wrong to cut the rope. Yes, I was wrong to take people across. Yes. I'm apologizing, Eli. You're listing facts. Connor's face reddened. What is the correct sentence? Eli thought of Wade in the conference room, trying to improve an apology after it had already been spoken. He thought of Ruth asking before deciding how to help. Tell me what you're sorry cost me, he said. Connor looked at the sling hanging from the back of the other chair. Your shoulder, he said. 2 weeks of work. Trust with the town. Having to save a bridge you told me wasn't safe. His voice lowered. And having your own brother make you prove you owned what he gave you. Eli said nothing. Connor pushed the spliced rope across the table. I'm sorry, he said. The dryers hummed beneath them. This time, Eli let the sentence remain imperfect without asking it to carry more than it could. Eli turned the rope over in his hands. The splice was uneven, but tight. Connor had watched enough demonstrations at the store to know how it should be done, though one strand had been passed through the wrong side. Thank you, Eli said. Connor looked up. That isn't forgiveness for all of it. I know. It isn't even forgiveness for Sunday yet. I know. You're agreeing too easily. I can argue if it helps. It doesn't. Connor nodded. I know. Eli set the rope on the table. That one was irritating. Felt more normal. They sat until the dryers below entered their final spin and made the silverware tremble in the drawer. Connor left without asking whether Eli would sign the access agreement. At the door, he noticed the loose hinge, took a screwdriver from the green toolbox, and tightened it. He did not announce the repair. Eli noticed that too. He signed the 5-year agreement 3 days later. Denise countersigned for Bracken, and the maintenance reserve received the remaining donations under the joint controls Eli had requested. There was no ceremony. Denise gave him a reflective vest, a ring of keys for the town equipment cabinet, and 12 blank inspection forms. You don't have to wear the vest every time, she said. I wasn't planning to wear it once. It helps people understand you're working. The tools are subtle. The vest also helps Public Works understand why you're using our brush cutter. He held it against himself. The orange fabric could have been seen from space. Connor will order me a sign. Connor already asked if the department wanted one. Of course he did. Eli folded the vest and placed it in the green toolbox. The work changed when someone paid him to name it. He inspected the bridge every Monday morning and after heavy rain. He measured the crack line beside the reinforcement plates, even though Dennis said it had stopped moving. He cleared the culvert, recorded loose fasteners, photographed erosion, and learned which weeds returned first after cutting. The forms forced him to distinguish between things that were ugly and things that were dangerous. He had spent years treating both as emergencies. Mara walked the path most evenings. Sometimes she met him at the upper steps and carried his clipboard while he checked drainage. Sometimes she crossed without stopping because she was late, which Eli considered a personal failure of scheduling. You are using the public path for private loitering, he told her one evening. She sat on the repaired railing near the 11-inch step, which was now 9. Write me up. You're sitting on the railing. It passed inspection. The bridge passed inspection. You inspect this railing? Not for you. She smiled. Is that concern or flirting? Separate procurement process. Mara moved her hand along the rail until it rested beside his. Slow process. Government involvement. She hooked one finger around his. Eli's shoulder regained most of its motion. When he could lift a toolbox without pain, the nursing home restored his on-call shifts. He worked one overnight emergency and realized halfway through replacing a water valve that he no longer needed every extra shift simply to remain afloat. The first maintenance payment covered the rent he owed Mrs. Dalton. She accepted it at the laundromat counter, wrote a receipt, and gave him a look over her glasses. You're current. I know. You could look happier. I'm waiting for the next thing. There is always a next thing. That's not the same as it already being late. She slid the receipt toward him. Leonard says you fixed the bathroom faucet after I told you not to. It was a washer. He says you criticized his wrench. It was adjustable. Most are. Not intentionally. Mrs. Dalton put another pencil in her hair. Warren used to argue with me about machines he didn't own. He thought ownership was flexible. So do you, apparently. Eli folded the receipt and put it in his wallet. It was the first rent receipt in months he did not want to throw away. The footpath became ordinary again, but not invisible. People waved when Eli worked. Some stopped to report a loose stone or fallen limb. Most learned to respect the closure sign during storms, especially after Connor placed a notice in the hardware store window, explaining that weather closures were safety decisions made by the contracted path steward and public works. He did not put his own name on it. That mattered more to Eli than if he had. The road bridge remained closed through summer. The footpath carried hotel employees, restaurant workers, pharmacy customers, nursing home staff, and merchants moving small deliveries by hand truck. Bracken added solar lights at both entrances, but left the ravine itself dark to avoid giving people confidence the terrain had not earned. Connor's store stabilized slowly. He reduced Greg's hours, but did not let him go. Lorna managed the footpath donation records and discovered that Connor had been rounding several supplier discounts down instead of taking credit for the full amount. "He has a disease," she told Eli. "It prevents him from appearing generous without complaining. Runs in the family." Wade brought 6 bags of concrete and called them leftovers. Were they leftovers? From a project he hasn't started. Eli laughed. Wade worked at the ravine 2 Saturdays each month. He never put his name on Ruth's volunteer sheet. He arrived, found a job, and left before lunch. He and Eli spoke mostly about practical things, where water collected, whether the maple near the west abutment needed trimming, which stones had shifted. The incomplete conversation from the culvert remained between them. Eli did not push it. Wade's silences were doors that opened inward. Shoving only held them closed. One Saturday, Wade came without work clothes. He wore khaki pants and carried a manila envelope. Dana waited in their car near the upper entrance, reading something on her phone. She raised one hand to Eli through the windshield. "What broke?" Eli asked. "Nothing." "Then you're overdressed. I need to show you something." Wade led him away from the path and up a narrow animal trail along the north slope. The climb emerged onto the lower edge of the pasture behind the Mercer house. From there, the land leveled into a shelf above the ravine. Rough grass, 2 old apple trees, and the collapsed remains of a 3-sided equipment shed. Eli had stood there years ago. He remembered Warren storing fence posts beneath the shed roof before the back wall gave way. A gravel track connected the shelf to the house drive, though weeds had narrowed it. Wade stopped beside a rusted fence stake. "This boundary is wrong," Eli said. "It's the old fence line. The parcel line is farther down, about 60 yards. Then we're on your land." "Yes." Wade held out the envelope. Eli did not take it. "What is that?" "A transfer agreement. Just under 3 acres. This shelf, the access track, and the slope down to your north boundary. You're giving me pasture. I'm returning it. You didn't take it from me. Dad's estate did. We drew the division. Together, I drew the property line. Connor wanted the store. I wanted the house. You were tired enough to sign what we put in front of you." Eli looked across the rough grass. The equipment shed leaned toward the ravine as if listening. "Why this piece? It connects to your parcel. There's enough flat ground to build something if you ever want to. A shed. Workshop. Whatever zoning allows." Did Dana agree? It was her idea to include the access track. Eli glanced toward the parked car. Dana remained inside, giving them privacy without pretending she did not know why they were there. He took the envelope but did not open it. "This doesn't make the split equal. No, it doesn't repay 4 years. No, it doesn't make the house less valuable." "I know." "Then why?" Wade pushed both hands into his pockets. His gaze went toward the roof of the Mercer house, visible above the rise. "Dad told me you were steady," he said. "We talked about that. Not all of it." The wind moved through the grass. Below them, someone crossed the footbridge, footsteps sounding briefly between trees. Wade continued. "I came over the week before he died. He was clear that afternoon. Clear enough to be cruel. Dad didn't need clarity for that. He said you'd carried what the rest of us put down." Eli felt something close around his ribs. "He was sick," he said. "I knew what he meant." Wade kicked at the old fence stake. "All my life, I was the responsible one, the eldest, the one who bought a house first, paid taxes, showed up in a jacket. Connor was the talker. You were the one who kept changing plans. That's generous. I'm telling you what I thought. Then Dad got sick and you became the dependable one. He looked at me like everything I'd done was decoration. So you gave me a ravine. I told myself the house had expenses. The pasture needed maintenance. The store had risk. I made lists until the division looked fair enough to say aloud." Wade's voice remained level, but his face had reddened from his collar to his temples. "I knew it wasn't fair," he said. I wanted you to have the thing nobody wanted because Dad had made me feel like the son nobody needed. The honesty struck harder than an excuse. Eli looked at the envelope. You punish me because he thanked me. Yes. After I took care of him. Yes. And then you sat in that conference room and told me nobody asked. Wade's mouth moved before sound came. Yes. Eli threw the envelope onto the grass. Wade flinched but did not reach for it. For several seconds, Eli could hear only wind, traffic on the distant detour, and the small metallic rhythm of someone using the repaired steps below. I wanted you to be ignorant, Eli said. About what? I wanted you to honestly believe the split was fair. I wanted you stupid, not cruel. I was both. That isn't better, I know. Stop saying you know. Wade nodded, then caught himself before speaking. Eli walked to the edge of the shelf. The ravine fell away beneath him, green now with summer growth. Through the leaves he could see a section of the footbridge and the orange edge of his reflective vest, where it hung from a railing post. You could sell this land, he said. Yes, add it to the house someday. Yes. Dana might regret giving up the access. She signed the agreement. You already signed it? Our signatures are there. Yours isn't. Eli turned. You decided again. Wade absorbed that. You're right. The immediate agreement made Eli angrier than the land itself. Even restitution had arrived prearranged, papers prepared, lines drawn by someone else. Wade walked toward the envelope, but stopped short of picking it up. What should I have done? He asked. Asked. I thought you'd refuse. I might. I thought if everything was ready, you'd know I meant it. What you mean isn't always the part everybody else has to live with. Wade looked down at the manila paper in the grass. What do you want me to do? The question was awkward, unpracticed. It reminded Eli of Ruth at his kitchen table, and Connor asking for the correct sentence after the bridge. Take the agreement home, Eli said. Bring me a map with the proposed line and no signatures. I'll decide what makes sense. If I want changes, you listen before you explain why they're inconvenient. Wade bent, picked up the envelope, and brushed grass from it. All right. And I want the old fence stake moved. The parcel should meet the drainage boundary, not cut across it. All right? And the access track stays shared. I'm not landlocking the lower pasture to make a point. Wade looked at him. You've thought about this. I've spent months thinking about how lines work. They walked back toward the animal trail. Near the collapsed shed, Wade stopped. There's something else in the garage, he said. I found it behind the mower. If it's another agreement, burn it. It's the footpath sign. The rest of it. Eli turned. Dad took it down years ago when the bottom rotted, Wade said. He cut off the bad section and kept the board with the lettering. Mercer Footpath. The whole name. Why didn't you bring it before? I didn't know whether it belonged to the house or the ravine. A faint smile touched Eli's mouth. Wade looked almost relieved to see it. That's the first smart ownership question you've asked, Eli said. He followed his brother down toward the path, leaving the property line undecided behind them. The old sign lay across two sawhorses in Warren's garage. The missing letters had not been missing at all. Wade had cut the rotten bottom from the board years earlier, then stored the sound section behind the mower. Mercer Footpath remained in Warren's faded green paint, with the brush marks still visible inside the white letters. Eli ran his hand along the edge. He saved everything, Wade said, except matching screws. He believed matching was a failure of imagination. The garage had changed. Wade's lawn equipment occupied one wall, and Dana had added metal shelves where the coffee cans once stood. But Warren's workbench remained scarred and uneven. One drawer still stuck unless lifted while pulling. Take the sign, Wade said. You're not giving me another thing until I ask. Wade started to reply, stopped, and tried again. Do you want the sign? Yes. Good. See how fast that was? I hated it. They carried it to Eli's truck together. Wade brought the revised property map the following Saturday. No envelope, no signatures, no prepared agreement. He spread the map over Ruth's folding table beside the path and held down the corners with stones. The proposed boundary followed the drainage line Eli had marked instead of the old fence. The shared access track was labeled clearly. Wade had included an additional narrow strip near the collapsed equipment shed, so Eli could reach the level ground without cutting through the steepest part of his existing parcel. Dana caught that, Wade said. I missed it. Eli studied the line. Will this interfere with the pasture gate? No, I moved the proposed gate north. You moved it or drew it? Drew it. I'm learning. Eli looked at him. Wade placed both hands behind his back, physically preventing himself from pointing out the features. I want the transfer, Eli said. Wade nodded. It isn't a gift. No, it isn't forgiveness. I know. Wade's eyes flicked toward him. Sorry, it can be part of making the inheritance fairer. That's what I want. And Dana needs her own copy before anybody signs. She already asked for one. Eli rolled the map carefully. Then we'll have Marlene prepare it. The transfer took a month. Wade did not rush him, and when the final agreement arrived, Eli read every page. The new parcel added less than 3 acres, most of it rough and unremarkable. It did not make him wealthy. It gave him a usable shelf of ground, a shared gravel track, 2 struggling apple trees, and the collapsed shed. For the first time, his property contained somewhere a person could set down a cup without it rolling into Bell Creek. He rebuilt the shed slowly. The roof came off first. Dennis helped straighten 2 salvageable posts and charged Eli for a half day, though he spent the full day criticizing the original construction. Connor sold Eli lumber at cost and produced an invoice accurate to the penny. Wade brought the 6 bags of concrete Lorna had accused him of hiding and admitted they had never been leftovers. Mara painted the repaired window frame blue. Warren used green, Eli said. Warren is not using this window. It doesn't match the sign. It matches the sky. The sky is gray. Your personality has weather. The shed became a workshop by increments, a solid floor, a workbench built from boards too short for the footbridge, pegboard above the tools, 2 used windows facing the ravine. Eli moved the green toolbox there, but kept Warren's mattock beside the path. He did not quit the nursing home. The regular paycheck mattered, and he liked repairing things that allowed people to keep their dignity. But he took small jobs in the workshop on his days off. Lawn equipment, hotel carts, a restaurant mixer that Vincent swore had become vindictive. The work paid for a rebuilt transmission in the truck and, later, a second chair for the workshop, so Mara could sit somewhere other than the bench. The road bridge reopened in early autumn. Cars crossed it cautiously for the first week, drivers lowering their windows as if they might hear trouble in the asphalt. The detour signs disappeared. Main Street deliveries returned to the loading zones. Connor sold the last of the spring lawn equipment at a loss and made a small ceremony of removing the faded sale banner. The footpath stayed busy. It was still faster for anyone traveling between the West Hillside and downtown. Hotel employees crossed before dawn. Nursing home staff used it after late shifts. People carried groceries, tools, takeout containers, and occasionally bicycles, despite Eli's posted request that they walk them across. Bracken installed a new rules placard beneath the restored wooden sign. Mercer Footpath, the old board said. Below it, the smaller metal sign listed weather closures, weight restrictions, emergency contacts, and the shared maintenance arrangement between the owner and Public Works. No donor names appeared. No business logo occupied a corner. Warren's uneven green letters remained exactly as he had painted them. Ruth stood beneath the sign after it was mounted and tilted her head. It's crooked, she said. The post is crooked. So is the sign. Historical accuracy. She accepted that. The town renewed Eli's maintenance contract after the 1-year pilot and extended it to match the remaining term of the access agreement. The quarterly payments were not enough to live on, and he did not want them to be. They paid for inspections, labor, and availability. They also meant the town no longer called his work neighborliness when it needed to avoid calling it work. Connor supported the renewal at the merchants' meeting. Eli learned that from Lorna, who reenacted Connor's remarks while standing in the hardware store's plumbing aisle. He said, and I quote, "The path requires somebody who understands the whole system, and Eli has demonstrated that he does." Then he sat down like the chair had insulted him. He said my name twice. That sounds medically serious. Connor appeared at the end of the aisle carrying a carton of faucet cartridges. I can hear both of you? Then it's working, Eli said. The phrase belonged to Connor originally. He recognized it and almost smiled. The store did not recover in the way Connor kept predicting. It survived, but survival required more hours and less pride than he had inherited with it. The apartments needed plumbing work. Supplier prices rose. Greg eventually left for a steadier warehouse job, and Lorna reduced her schedule to care for her own aging mother. Connor listed the business and building for sale after the winter inventory. He told Wade and Eli before he called a broker. "I'm not asking permission," he said at the diner. "I'm informing the people who will act offended if they read it in the paper." "Are you sure?" Wade asked. "No." Connor waited for one of them to use uncertainty against him. Eli stirred his coffee. "What do you want to do?" "I have an offer from a building supplier in Harrisburg. Regional sales, training contractors, handling accounts." "You'd be good at that," Wade said. "Because I talk too much?" "Because you can convince a man he needs a more expensive hammer." Connor looked at Eli. "You would be good at it," Eli said. "That doesn't mean you'll like it." "I know. Then ask before you sign." Connor rolled his eyes. This family has become exhausting. He sold the store to an established operator from the next county. The price covered his business line, left him with less than he had once claimed the building was worth, and still gave him a clean start. He moved to Harrisburg, but returned to Bracken often enough that nobody could turn his absence into another simple story. On his final day at the store, he gave Eli the brass bell from above the door. "What am I supposed to do with this?" "Put it on the workshop, so every customer can announce himself, so Mara can tell when you're pretending not to be there." Connor had noticed too much, as usual. Eli mounted the bell above the workshop door. It rang whenever the wind blew from the south until he adjusted the spring. Wade and Eli did not become the brothers they might have been if Warren had spoken differently, or if either of them had asked for help sooner. They became men who practiced asking. Wade called before borrowing tools. Eli called when a storm required two people. They argued about the shared access track, the pasture gate, and whether the old apple trees needed pruning. Dana occasionally settled these disputes by leaving a library book on the subject in whichever brother's truck was wrong. Connor called from Harrisburg on Sundays. Some weeks he complained about hotel rooms and sales quotas. Other weeks he asked about the creek before asking about either brother. The anniversary of Warren's death arrived with light rain. Eli woke before dawn and went to the workshop. The brass bell gave one soft note when he opened the door. He took the green toolbox, the inspection clipboard, and Warren's mattock, then walked down the north slope toward the path. Wade was waiting at the upper entrance with 2 coffees. "You're early," Eli said. "So are you." "I work here. I brought coffee. That doesn't establish authority." Wade handed him a cup. Dana said, "If I mentioned authority, I should come home." Dana remains wise. They stood beneath the restored sign while rain tapped the leaves. Neither mentioned the cemetery. They had gone separately the day before, each unwilling to turn grief into an appointment. Eli opened the toolbox and gave Wade a wrench. "East railing," he said. "Third connection from the bridge." Wade looked down the steps. "Loose?" "Starting to." They descended together. At the footbridge, Wade tested the connection and tightened it a quarter turn. Eli checked the green date on the reinforced support. No movement. The abutment remained dry where the drainage channel carried runoff toward the creek. Wade leaned over the railing. "Don't bounce," Eli said. "I wasn't going to." "You were thinking about it. Connor would bounce. Connor would sell tickets." They laughed. Footsteps approached from the Main Street side. Ruth crossed in her purple raincoat. No cane now, carrying a hotel work bag and coffee of her own. "Morning," she said. "Third board from the west is solid," Eli told her. "I've retired from testing." Behind her came 2 nursing home employees and a man pushing a bicycle. Eli and Wade stepped aside to let them pass. The bridge accepted their weight with a low wooden murmur, and nothing more. Near the upper steps, leaves had collected against the mouth of a stone channel. Water spilled across the path in a thin sheet. Eli set down the toolbox and reached for the mattock. Wade took it first. "Show me," he said. Eli pointed to the dark line where the channel curved beneath the leaves. "Start there. Don't dig too deep or you'll break the stone lip." Wade planted the blade and pulled. Wet leaves came free in one heavy clump. The trapped water rushed into the channel, clear at first, then brown with loosened earth. He stepped back and watched it find the old route toward Bell Creek. "Like that?" he asked. Eli picked up the toolbox. "Like that." Wade carried the mattock. Eli carried the tools. Above them, feet continued across the bridge while the brothers followed the running water down through the ravine.